Hello, hello. A lot of talk about D&D in the chat. Um, D&D is kind of funny, right? Like it's one of those things that's kind of had a resurgence in recent years, but it's one of those things like even if you like it and are into it, it's so hard to actually make part of your life because like a D&D game takes like first of all, how are you going to organize like five of your friends to get together and then like do you have like 5 or 6 hours to like sometimes longer. Like most of my friends that play D&D, it would be like they'd get together at like 9 p.m. and then they would go until morning, like they'd do a campaign all the way through the night. Um but man, I mean, it's I went to, show my age, I went to a Gen Con way back in like when I was in like fifth grade or something in Milwaukee. It was really tiny back then. But it's amazing actually the cultural influence of D&D. I mean, people like, being in a D&D game is one thing, and it's funny how like Stranger Things tries to popularize it and things like that, but it's really really difficult to get enough people together. It is true that like online stuff and like a lot of computer games like Baldur's Gate were kind of based uh, around the rules of it, and even in a sense, turn based like RPG video games like Final Fantasy were all kind of based on the idea, even though that was not really like Gary Gygax's like intent. Like he kind of like his first thing about D&D and AD&D was like have some have some loose rules, but it's all just about like imagination. And apparently that's still like any like big D&D gamer will say like, oh, it's totally about imagination. Like if a rule doesn't work, don't use it. And most people do have, like most DMs do have like various like they just change the rules at will. But then, I think a lot of people get really into the dice rolling and the stats and like, oh, I've got to get my 18 like pushed up to a 20 with a +2 ring. And it's too much the numbers game. And that numbers game kind of became the turn-based like RPG video games that we kind of know from the late 80s and 90s. Um, the text-based online D&D games. I do remember like some of them like back in the day where you could just program them in basic and stuff and uh, yeah, like it's a different really different time, but it's amazing how all of that kind of stuff like because it gets these cultural things where several steps happen and they evolve. How I think in a previous stream I was talking about like curry in Taiwan is based on Japanese curry, which is based on English curry, which is based on Indian curry, and you start getting these like steps of evolution of culture, right? And so you kind of have, you start with like The Hobbit, but then Dungeons and Dragons then took Hobbit lore and changed it, which then became like general fantasy lore, which kind of went back into other stuff. And so you like people forget that there's this like there's this very important step between Hobbit and the rest of fantasy that D&D kind of had there. So if there's a song in an Ice and Fire based tabletop, I'll DM you and Carmine. There has to be one, right? Wasn't the what was it called? I think there's a source book, right? That everyone calls like semi canon. Um uh there is a Song of Ice and Fire role playing game RPG. Oh god, there is one. Um but I seem to remember like some of the entries on the wiki would like take information from the role playing game. And I just remember one of them being really weird because it was whether there was a um the guy from the Faith of the Seven that escorts Cersei in A Dance with Dragons has a Dornish surname, but in the role playing game, his house is from the north, which changes everything. Like, you know, if obviously if there's a Dornish person like escorting, you know, Cersei, we start thinking about conspiracies and stuff. But then, like, you know, if the person is like in the north, then he wouldn't be part of that. But why would a Faith of the Seven house be in the north? And yeah, they had to build it to specifically not to have magic. That's interesting. Yeah, because how many role playing games don't have magic? But and even if you're a red priest, you can't use, like, you know, something silly like incinerate bird. Like, how many spells do you have? Well, we've got 4. Like, there's Shadow Baby, Incinerate Bird, and See Ambiguous Vision. Like, those are your 3. Those are your 3 spells, and they may or may not actually come from you. Like, um, let's see here. Talk about The Boys' horrible season finale. Has ever people want to get into spoilers? I feel like somebody's going to get angry about me if I start talking about The Boys' season finale. But I mean, I think anything where you kind of like shove all the characters in one place, and try to resolve all the plots at once, you're going to fail. But um, I do think that, to be very general, like, the interaction between Soldier Boy and Homelander was perfect. Like, that was perfect. A great subversion of expectations. I actually really did, but like actually more fitting than what was set up. But anyway, I think Carmine and I did a podcast on it, so I don't want to give away too much. Carmine, I may have to add you here. There we go. Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just cleaning my dishes. Had some dinner.
Yeah. What's okay? By the way, look, I've got something special here. Look at this.
What?
Hold on.
Make sure you like end my. Why don't you use my actual icon? What the fuck is that?
What? I mean, well, it was easier to like.
Hello, my love.
It was easier to grab a PNG that was already online that like didn't have a background, and so yeah, you're there, you know. Yeah. See, look how high tech that is. Now people won't be confused.
Sure. Why not? Why not? I know, my love. I'm here. I know.
That's his cat in the background. His one true love.
My roommate sent me a video from, like, because it's our 3-year anniversary of when we got her, and I told my roommate, like, no pets. Oh, I hate pets. I don't hate pets, but we lived in an apartment at the time, and like, I don't want to have a pet within an apartment. I want to have like a big backyard for them to run around in. But, you know, and I'm Latino. Us Latinos, we don't like cats, but I'm now a cat dad. It's official.
Especially Latinx.
I fucking hate that term. Oh my God, I hate that. If Biden says Latinx, I'm voting against him immediately.
I don't think he has yet, but I think
oh my fucking God.
Some people say like instead they'd like Latin A is probably like better, right?
Oh my God. By the way, Milk Suck, whatever his name is, tell me you're super old without telling me you're super old.
Yeah, Carmine's avatar is Haunter, which is the first evolution of
Come on, you can do it.
Hold on.
Starts with a G.
I know, but the thing is, the final evolution is also a G, because it's Gengar. Right. is the final evolution. The first evolution is shit.
Let me just tell you.
I should. Yeah, I mean, it'll take too long.
It's Ghastly.
Ghastly, of course. Ghastly.
I'm still Fucking shocked, Mamoswine and Empoleon. That's Gen 4 shit. I'm still surprised.
I mean, Mamoswine is like a major player on my PvP team. What can I do?
Oh my god, get out of here. You have a PvP team, really?
Well, what can you do? What can you do?
Wait, you're playing Pokemon Go, or you're playing?
Yeah, Pokemon Go on yeah. I play it when as I take my kid to daycare. I get some miles in on my Pokemon Go.
Get the fuck out, dude! Just play the actual games. What are you doing? You can
No,
play the actual games.
no. Look, if I have time by myself in an apartment like here, I've got to be creating videos or doing live streams or something. Like I'm not.
No, you don't. Stop it.
I'm not wasting any time on a video game. Okay, I don't.
Play the original Pokemon Red.
It's not gonna happen, dude. It's just not gonna happen. I'm not playing video games. People love getting this shit. Can we talk about Gemma Lannister? Yeah, I make mistakes sometimes. Jesus, I said Gemma instead of Genna or Jenna in my outline.
I thought it was Gemma.
Jenna. I think it might be with N's. Anyway, but it doesn't matter. It's N's in there. I don't know why I thought it was with M's, but is Glitus lurking or can he join the call? Glitus can do whatever he wants, man. I'm not his dad that I know of. He can if he wants to lurk, he can lurk. If he wants to join, he can join. People do these things. They've got their own lives.
That's not true. I had a Gengar. It's just my favorite.
Preston is the raid king. I'm off raid for like nearly a year now.
Wait, Raid Shadow Legends?
I think that's what he was talking about, or maybe he's talking about Pokemon. I don't know. You're
still the only YouTuber. You're the only YouTuber I've ever met who played it, and that's not your channel. You're the only I know so many YouTubers who have done Raid Shadow Legends promos. You're the only guy who has played the game legitimately. Ironic.
Oh yeah. Well, there's the people that actually have like channels based around it.
Mm-hmm.
Swifty is probably lurking too. I doubt it. He's a busy guy. Nobody lurks on my streams except for losers, right? All the losers here. The who would be the best Pokemon Go trainer in Ice and Fire?
Best Pokemon trainer.
This is an interesting question. You mean like who in Ice and Fire would make a good trainer, or like who like Spark or whoever the in-game trainers would be good in who would be good in Ice and Fire and make it? I don't know. Like who'd be a good Pokemon Go trainer? Probably Ramsey. He's like good at training dogs, right?
Oh, that's a good point. I would say the young kids, since they have a lot of time on their hands.
At risk of getting too off topic, triggered the internet. Who was the best James Bond, and what's the best James Bond movie, and why is it GoldenEye? The best James Bond movie, by far, and the best James Bond is On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and the best Bond is George Lazenby. And you can all fucking fight me. That's just the way it is. Okay, like who did not like originally see and On Her Majesty's Secret Service and come to that ending and be like, what the fuck? Like what the honest fuck? It's a fucking great movie. Fucking great movie. I'm trying to think of some other ones that I really like. I like From Russia with Love. I like Casino Royale. Living Daylights is okay. There's not that many, right? I don't know. You familiar with Bond at all, Carmine?
I read one of the books eons ago,
Oh,
and I was
really?
kind of appalled as to. Did you know that? Did you read any of the Bond books? The Ian Fleming
People have
ones?
told me that like Bond uh is very different in the books, that he actually like thinks in his head, like thinks about stuff and has emotions and gets nervous and
It's very he multiple times it comes up that and I'm assuming the author believed this, that if you can't whistle, you're gay. Did you know about that?
huh. If you can't
This is
whistle,
like
you're
a
gay?
if you can't like if you can't whistle, you are a homosexual, and that comes up many times in the novels. Did you not know that?
No.
Swear, you look it up. Swear to God.
This
Swear,
is this is such an
swear.
odd thing cuz like obviously like gay people can whistle. Like but
Back me up, chat. This is a thing the author believed, and it comes up so many times.
huh. The Man with the Golden Gun, Licensed to Queer, returning to James Bond novels as an adult. I'm struck by how much the whistle has homosexual tendencies. What? What?
You know this?
A man who cannot whistle has homosexual tendencies. And
This comes
Scaramanga
up
cannot whistle.
just so
What?
many times.
This is like the
Dude.
most odd fucking thing.
Like, there's a lot of random shit in James Bond stuff. Like, what else? Like, he gets really, he's like a Karen if you fuck up his like food order. What else? Like, he gets really pissy about that. Like, it's just a lot of like random amounts of racism. I mean, it's the era.
Yeah. Yeah. Get this how dare you on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah, it's totally the era. I mean, it's very Soldier Boy, right? Like when men were men, men could whistle. I mean, there's two types of whistlings, obviously. There's like this whistle, you know, like, and then there's like the mouth, the fingers in your mouth kind of whistle that I can't do. So
I
I
can't
don't
do
know
that
what
either.
he's talking about. Is he talking about the singing whistle that, you know?
I have no clue. By the way, we did discuss The Boys. I'm actually editing that right
Yeah.
now, and I'll put that out soon. But Preston has a great. Me and Preston came up with a phenomenal theory as to how Homelander could actually be defeated. Don't
Mm.
say it out loud because it's the most. It's the most ridiculous character who can. We actually think.
What's funny
Homelander.
is I went to Mr. Sunday Movies just came out with a video where they talked about how to kill Homelander, and they didn't mention it, but I went to the chat, and like a few people in the chat were like, "What about?" And it was like what we were talking about. But yeah,
Dude, the comments. If the comments section teamed up, it'd be the greatest YouTube channel of all time. Everybody's like detectives in the comment section. It's ridiculous. The comment section could solve every mystery on the planet that came together. But they're too busy ripping on each other over Biden and Trump and all this bullshit.
this is the Gladys is thinking that the whistle thing is that sucking dick loosens the lips too much. Is that
I
the
have
theory?
no idea, but this pops up fairly like a fair amount of times.
So like growing up as a young man in a fairly conservative part of America, I went to an all boys camp when I was young, and I heard every dirty and racist joke ever known to man, probably by the age of 10. Like, and I've known like just like so many, and like there's no there's no good punchline to them at all ever, other than the fact that like, you know, the punchline is women or minority or gay person or, you know, Polish person or whatever. I remember one joke was like, it's just really bad. It's just like two gay guys get into a taxi cab and they start having a farting contest, and their farts are like these like very like whispers, and then the taxi cab driver's like, "Hey, I'll fart too," and he's like, and the gay guys in the back go, "Virgin," and like that's the whole joke. the fact that like the taxi cab driver has like a big loud fart because like, you know, he doesn't have anal sex, while the gay guys like would
It's
have
a weird
like,
flex, but all right.
yeah, it's a weird. Well, you know, this ridiculous, as if like regular people don't like crap, you know, like poo like doesn't come out of our butt like every day,
Yo, what is this
stretching out our
conversation?
sphincters. Just
What is this conversation, Preston?
I know we're talking about the weirdness of fucking like of Bond, and these like weird jokes and what people think is funny and interesting and weird, and man, like the jokes I heard when I was 10, like they really kind of get into the mind of like of a lot of America and a lot of the past. Because man, it was just like endless, the number of completely unfunny, unclever jokes that had to do with um, being gay or being black or whatever, being Polish, being women, that I heard when I was 10 years old. Where I placed the Dany chapter in the timeline. So so some people, now that more chapters are coming in and people are wondering about like how chapters kind of fit together in the timeline. Generally speaking, like you know, I was thinking about the first day of winter and the White Raven as this kind of like day that you've got to get all the chapters out of the way that happened before it first. And so, which is like why I kind of see like having 2 Alayne chapters and 2 Hota chapters and 2 Ariane chapters and maybe a Connington chapter, maybe a 3rd Ariane chapter, all before the first day of winter. But that means like there's not that much room for like other people coming in. For instance, like, you know, maybe Jaime and Brienne might happen after the first day of winter, or getting up to or Dany, like, considering how crowded it is and how we got to get a lot of chapters away before the first day of winter, Dany could be a chapter later. Because part of it happens before the first day of winter and part of it happens after. So it can go in either place. But I think just because it's so crowded, like you'd want to put Dany later on. Like, what's Dany been doing? Well, let us get through 20 other freaking chapters of people before we get to Dany. Even though the beginning of Dany's chapter might happen like well before the first day of winter. It's just Dany's chapter takes place over the course of, I mean, a month and a half. Like it's a different style chapter, you know. So, yeah. So it's going to be, as we do a bunch of chapters, like Dany's always going to be last in the playlist. So and so far, and then we'll kind of move on from there. But yeah, it does seem like, now it's something I hadn't really thought of before, but it does seem like the first chapters in A Dance with, I mean, in the Winds of Winter would have to be all of the other characters that we haven't heard of from before. Sam, you know, 2 Hotas, 2 Arians, at least 2 Alaynes, like a John Con, all happening. And then the first day of winter, and then maybe, you know, a Cersei chapter, then maybe a Jaime chapter, and then, you know, and then I don't know, everything at the wall and things like that would happen later. Let's see. Besides other tourneys, what kind of parallels should Alayne 2 chapter have? Next over on his and then next over analyzing House of the Dragon happens when? The tourneys, let me think. You know, you should think about other places, you know, other ravens arriving. I'm trying to think. You know, there's none that's necessarily super necessary, but you know, wherever you kind of see one, I'm trying to think. You know, Alayne's plot is very different than everybody else's, right? Like she's a little schemer. She's supposed to be becoming a schemer with Littlefinger, while this like tourney is going on. So we go back to other tourneys, but then I'm trying to think of other things like, you know, does Alayne fit in with, say, Asha, who's like a schemer next to somebody else who's in power? Not really. Maybe Ariane, because she's trying to be a schemer next to the people that actually have the real power. That might be a better situation. Maybe thinking about the battles of ice and battles of fire and blood and steel, if those sorts of things fit in, like different events that happen there. But nothing sticks out in my mind as being too necessary. If you don't want the Alayne chapter to be paralleled to these things, like, you don't have to. But if you find interesting parallels to the other battles, but I don't see where, like, all of the knights would be falling into a big ice lake, or where a dragon would be coming in necessarily. So I can't think of it too much, but yeah. Let's see. Insane, but still both felt the need to whistle. Oh.
We both whistled.
Gladys reminds us that gays do not have a monopoly on anal sex. In the jokes of 10-year-old children, like, oh God. Keep in mind, like, these camp jokes. These. So if you're a little boy who goes to camp in America, you get these jokes, like, they almost all start with, like, oh, this guy's car broke down, and so he goes to the old farmhouse, and he needs a place to, like, sleep. And the farmer says, okay, you can sleep in the barn, but don't stick your dick in the 3 holes in the wall. And so he's like, okay. And then in the middle of the night, he just keeps looking over to those three holes. And he's like, okay. And then he puts his dick in the first hole, and he's like, oh, that feels really good. So he, like, sticks his dick in the second hole, and he's like, oh, that feels really good. And so then he sticks his dick in the third hole, and he's like, ah, and he pulls it out, and it's all bloody. And the next morning he asks the farmer, like, what were those 3 holes in the wall? And he's like, oh, the first one's my daughter's room, and the second one's my wife's room, and the third one is my electric pencil sharpener. Like, you're just like, these are like the 10-year-old jokes that, like, that American boys hear at camp. Like, they just don't.
Hilarious.
Like they just, like, why would the daughter and wife be, like, up against the wall? Why is there an electric pencil sharpener? Like, I've heard other versions that make a little more sense, where it's like, oh, that's my milking machine. But it's like, how would a cow be, like, pushed, like, perpendicular, like, onto the wall? Like, none of these things.
And ever since this joke, Preston began questioning every story he's heard, and that is the origin story of the channel.
I mean, it's just ridiculous jokes about, like, witches and, ears of corn, and tossing them down to some, like, banquet below. Like, it's just dumb jokes. But the things, oh God. Really looking forward to Alayne chapter. Was Miranda showing Alayne mercy or telling her to leave a callback to Ned? Yeah, I was thinking about Miranda's showing of mercy to Alayne being a callback of Ned to Cersei. That was especially it. Some people are like, why would Miranda show Sansa mercy? It's like, I don't know, for the same reason Ned did. But the idea is to just, she's not immediately having Alayne arrested. She's letting Alayne sweat long enough for, the event with attorney to occur. But this is the reason. But yeah, I was thinking about Ned giving mercy to Cersei when I mentioned the Miranda giving mercy to Alayne situation. I'm sure people that, like, do not want to be spoiled or did not watch the outline are like, what the fuck is he talking about? I get Chad's Sweet Robin, but why the Night King? He's so Marcus is referring to my 3 characters in the Watch series, and these kind of happened organically. I think originally there was just Sweet Robin making comments on stuff, and then I think he came to the Hard Home episode, and so he all of a sudden this character was introduced of Brandon Nightsking, and then that I think Hardhome was near the end of the season, and so then the next season I introduced him as a regular and added Chad Summerchild. Back in those first days. Some say season 5 watch is definitely a little it's rougher around the edge, but some people say it's like has more charm because it's so ridiculously like slopped together so quickly. I don't know, but and the characters have changed so much over time. Even their voices have changed. Like I was doing a British accent for Sweet Robin, or my bad British accent for Sweet Robin in the beginning, and then I was just like, this is too difficult. Or like Brandon's voice was rougher in the beginning, and that was too much pain on my throat. And even Chad has gotten a little more ridiculous over time. You know, he's kind of like Homered, Homer Simpsoned out to other things. Thoughts on the Ghost chapter? Yeah, I think Ghost chapter would be a really great epilogue of the Winds of Winter, in my opinion. But I don't know about a Ghost chapter like in the middle. But the really like the idea of Maya Stone as a mystery knight. Try it out. I think other people had some really good ideas on why Blackfish would make a good mystery knight. One reason is that, like, if Blackfish arrives, he's gonna run into Donald Wainwood first, and then at the Bloody Gate, or he's gonna meet one of his previous companions at the Bloody Gate before he gets to the Gate of the Moon, and then Donald Wainwood could like set up the whole requesting a mystery knight kind of situation and get him into the lists, and then it could be Donald Wainwood's like scheming around, because they spent many years together and should be good buds, and they probably have like mind when it comes to the politics on the ground. So there's some good arguments for Maya and Blackfish for being the mystery knight. But got to come up with another good way for Michael Redfort and to falter, or Lothar Brun to falter. Is Hota a pun on Hota? Is George cling about a sexual tendency like Hota as a hoe? Nah, I don't think so. I mean, Ariel Hota is a virgin I think. I can't think of any reason why we'd think he's ever had sex. Do you think history will repeat itself for Littlefinger with Robin challenging Harry for Sansa's hand? No one would let that happen. I mean, no one would allow Sweet Robin to go into a duel with Harry the Heir. I mean, Sweet Robin's like 8, it's a little different than Littlefinger. I mean, you can maybe look into that rivalry or something as a parallel kind of thing, like the wimpy kid, the Tully girl, and the butch kind of jock guy, but in an actual literal duel. No, that can't happen. And there's not enough time left in the story for Littlefinger for Sweet Robin to grow up. No, they wouldn't happen that. If the point of Robb's will is to minimize Sansa's claim to the north, then wouldn't Jon be the best choice because Catelyn is still Sansa's mom and will establish a female successor line? This is we're talking about who Blackfish would support after his failed situation at River Run and supporting Robb. Like who would be the next person that he would support for king? And the thing is, Jon Snow is just such a bad choice, like for someone like Blackfish. Like, one, he's not of he's not of the Riverlands at all. And if he's ever talked to Catelyn, he knows that Catelyn hates the guy. But even ignoring all of that, let's say the fan theory happened that like Edmure found out that the person chosen in the will was Jon, and then he passes that information on to Blackfish. Jon's at the wall, so far away, without any army that Blackfish would know about. Like, it's true that like Jon might, if he ends up alive, and they end up getting out of that like slaughter at the wall, he might have a small wildling army of a few thousand. Like, but that's nothing. And then you'd have to march those guys all the way south, dealing with like the Boltons, not only at Winterfell, but at Moat Cailin, to get all the way to the Riverlands. Like, just time, logistics, chances, plus like how do you get him out of the Night's Watch? Like, Robb kind of dismissed the whole thing, like, oh man, I'm sure Northern Lords would let him go. Well, now you got to get all the Northern Lords to agree, which means you've got to like deal with the Boltons fully and thoroughly. It's just such a long shot on like why Blackfish would care about Jon Snow, like this character so far away without an army, that his house hated. It's just when his great nephew is right there in the Vale with a huge army, and not just his great nephew, but like a boy that Littlefinger, a boy that Blackfish acted as pretty much the father of, for many years. Like, it's just put yourself in Blackfish's position. You're a bitter old man looking for an army to do whatever the fuck you want. Who is more pleasing to you? Like, a boy that you helped raise and your great nephew who is, amiable with this huge army of 10,000 that can quickly march into the Riverlands in a matter of a couple weeks, or some bastard northerner that like your niece hated, who's in the Night's Watch, who doesn't have an army, who's would be actively at war with the Boltons, that has to get through Winterfell and Moat Cailin. Like, it's like, just think about it. Like, of course he's gonna go for Sweet Robin. Like, why would you go for Jon other than the fact that like he's a fan favorite? Like, there's no reason to go for Jon. I don't actually get why like people's love for Jon goes so far where you're trying to get like every random character to be like for Jon. Like, why the fuck would the Blackfish be for Jon? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it's so much more logical for him to go to the place he lived for years. Like, he was living in the Vale for years with Lysa, like years with Sweet Robin, and he lived with Littlefinger for years at Riverrun. Like, he knows these people. He doesn't know who the fuck Jon Snow is. Fuck, like some bastard kid on the wall with no army. Anyway, I don't mean to like go on a rant, but it's just like, it's not the first time I've been hearing this question a lot. Like I've gotten like 5 or 6 people like questioning, like, what wouldn't he go for Jon? Why would he go for Jon? I don't get it. You mentioned the hands and the Ash Attorney as inspiration for the new chapter, but what about Harrenhal? Working in Blue Flower references. Yes, to Harrenhal too. I think any tourney would be good. And I think any tourney would be good. And obviously, like the hands tourney is already kind of based on Harrenhal in many respects. But yeah, you perhaps some roses and things like that in there. Since you were alive in the 90s, can you describe what the decade was like and felt? I do wonder how it truly was sometimes. I mean, you got to remember that, like, you know, kids are kids, and for the most part, you're going to have like a lot of universals about like, growing up in the 90s and being a teenager and things like that, and all the hardships of being a teenager. Um, and then, I was a teenager, and my college experience was in the 90s. But I do know that, like, there was a very, like, Bill Clinton, he was a very good speech maker, and he gave these very rosy speeches about hope in the future, and people really bought that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of, like, feelings about, like, the future being really positive, and you know being this sort of multicultural international existence. Like, Russia was our friend, and things seemed to be looking good on that front. There wasn't any terrorism. It was yeah, there we had our issues, and there were some issues in Iraq and obviously former Yugoslavia during that time. But there was a lot of positive feelings about this. And then it kind of all culminated in the movie. Like, if you see the movie American Beauty or Fight Club, both of the plots of those movies, which are very American and of that time, like, were about how when you're given everything you want and you still have this feeling of ennui, like, what's next? Like, when everything's great and you're still unhappy, like, how do you handle that? Which is just such a ridiculous, like, notion, like, since 9/11 and on, and then Trumpism and just the disaster that the world has kind of, like, spiraled into, and far right extremism, and, well, first, like, Islamic extremism, and then far right extremism, and all this shit, like, happening in the past 20 years. Like, no one would ever have the idea that the world is rosy, but I'm still unhappy. Now it's like the world is a fucking mess, and we're all miserable. So I think there was this really positive feeling in the 90s, like, oh my gosh, like, everything is going to be great. And when Bill Clinton would tell these, like, make these speeches, all of his speeches were about how, like, no, you know what, everything is going to be great, like, we're going to figure these things out. The music industry was, like, producing music where the music was so good, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, like, the small band is back. Everyone can, like, get in their garage and make a record and inspire the world. And it was a very, very hopeful time, the 90s, which it's hard to explain, because maybe it was all bullshit, but we were all convinced of it. And then, we kind of have this, souring that kind of came around the millennium and things like that. And I don't know. Again, it's also like, I'm a high school and college, like, suburban kid for from living in Maryland and Chicago, and my feelings are not necessarily everybody's feelings. I don't know what somebody in Alabama was thinking. I don't know what, like, a poor black person in Cleveland was thinking. My perspective is my perspective. And so it's like, certainly for like a liberal suburban, like, white kid, like, we're being told that the world is going to be great and we're all going to save the world, kind of aspect. And, like, and yeah, it's but I don't know. I don't know if everybody else had that feeling too. Would it be best to keep it unclear about who the Mystery Knight is? Yeah. I mean, you want to, usually when they're finally defeated, or if they finally win, they usually take off their helmet. It'd be interesting to have, like, to take off his helmet, or to never take off his helmet, to have a Mystery Knight, like, lose and then just, like, run away. Who is that Mystery Knight? I have no idea. Gladys is like, I was alive in the 90s. I watched Teletubbies and Thomas the Tank Engine. What are your favorite books? Trying to think, like, trying to think of, like, books that really, like struck me. I did I used to read a lot of David Foster Wallace, but not Infinite Jest, because his other stuff is short stories and essays, and they were really good, and I liked those. There was one that I I liked called Brief Interviews with Hideous Men. Um, then after that, I started switching to a lot more like nonfiction that I thought was interesting, and so I don't know. I really liked the Nine, which was this, but which was about the Supreme Court, and now it's like everything. It's so sad having read it and then like seeing the world now. Um, it's tough. I wish I was a bigger reader and had more time for reading to let people know. Like I've certainly read some of the books that like people talk about. Like like I read like House of Leaves and I've read The Magicians and things like that, and they're all very interesting books. But I'm not sure if I'd ever call them like favorites or like I read The Corrections and stuff like that. There's a lot of hip books at the time where you kind of like read them and then like okay that was all right, but nothing really like really bowled me over. So I don't know. I'm not very good at book recommendations. I know people like book recommendations all the time, but um, I haven't really like found a book that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the greatest thing ever. I need. Um, um, yeah, I don't think American Beauty is a great movie, but my God, it's fascinating time capsule of cultural stagnation. Yeah, what's funny is that like it's of that time. I don't think it holds up. The movie does not hold up at all. But I remember like my first time watching American Beauty and thinking, my God, this is a brilliant movie. But now we'd watch it and we'd immediately be like, this guy's creepy for creeping on this like high school girl. Um, he this like the next door neighbor kid is like pretentious and about the whole plastic bag. They're all rich and happy. Like, aren't they like privileged assholes for even like feeling ennui and like bad emotion and all sorts of stuff. Like, I think there's a lot more criticism of the characters. They're less sympathetic today, but at the time, like it was really kind of I don't know. It was a good movie, and I just remember really loving it and thinking when it won Best Picture that it definitely deserved it at the time. I think even now, like you can't even look at Fight Club, which was one of my favorite movies, and now people are so much more critical of Fight Club, being like, oh, what a snotty, like entitled like piece of shit the main character was, and it was like, well, that was certainly the author's intent when he originally wrote the book. The movie is much your Edward Norton is much more sympathetic, but like now I think you kind of come around to this guy's pretty horrible, even though I really liked it, but um you could read anything by Jasper Ford. I'm trying to think. Oh, it is Ford. The Ear Affair, Lost in a Good Book, Nurse Crime Division, Shades of Grey, The Dragon Slayer, Eye of Zoltar. That rings a bell for some reason. Eye of Zoltar. I'm not sure why. Um, Favorite Lord of the Ring book and thoughts on the trailer. Um, does Hobbit? I mean, I think I like Hobbit more than the Lord of the Rings, but some people would be very, if that counts. But even though it's a very very different book, I think if I'm talking about the Lord of the Rings, like I think the stronger stuff is actually at the beginning. I think like the Fellowship of the Rings, um, and the establishment of the world and the characterization, I think is better in that book than the later books. But that's just my opinion. But I don't know. I do think they people will disagree with me, but I do think they kind of just go downhill from Lord of the Rings. I mean from Fellowship of the Ring kind of stuff. Like he put more time into the beginning than he did into the end. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, Hobbit though is special because you just definitely get that like fun feeling where you want to live in that universe, you know, where you want to be there. Even though the Hobbit actually has a very weak ending that happens all kind of at once, really fast. Like it's kind of like this slow little adventure, and then all of a sudden, like out of fucking nowhere, all these armies fucking show up, and there's a dragon, and you're like, what the, how? Like we were following this like merry band of adventurers. You into drugs, Preston? No, I can't. I'd get fired from work. But I'm not allowed to. I haven't done drugs. I haven't done anything. I haven't smoked marijuana since I was 23 years old. So it's been a long time.
Damn, that's a long time, man.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, no. You into drugs? I forgot you were around, Carmine. You've been quiet.
Oh, sorry. Like you know me. I don't when you're on a roll, I don't want to interrupt. I feel like it's like incredibly rude. But no. Yeah,
Preston, look at these random questions. Like here, what's the longest you can hold your breath for? I think I can hold my breath for a long time. Like I used to do like competitions with like friends and pools, and I'd always win. But I think it's just like I'm bigger and I have low blood pressure or something. Maybe my heart beats slower or something. But I can hold my breath underwater a long fucking time. I haven't timed myself recently, but you know, I do take my kids swimming like every week, and you know, if my wife's in the pool and I can do laps, I sometimes just, you know, do laps, and you know, I don't feel like I take breaths very much. I don't know. What you been up to, Carmine?
Oh, I'm just
what's your favorite Lord of the Ring book?
I'm not really a fan of the books that much, but if I had to pick, I like The Hobbit. I know that's a cop-out answer because everybody says Hobbit, but The Hobbit's a nice adventure.
Yeah. Hey, Preston, is Carmine your butt boy? Yes. Yo,
I forgot to tell you, there's a theory I love that someone came with me, because you know how I'm like incredibly private and all that?
Yeah.
And how like there's the funny rumors that you're like a CIA, FBI agent, whatever the fuck. I love the theory, because there's theories about you and me, of course there are. I love the theory that I'm a hardened criminal and you're my FBI handler, and this is like a thing we do, right? Even Lavender agrees. I know, baby.
Yeah.
So like I'm under house arrest, and you're my handler, and you're keeping an eye on me, and we decided to do this podcast because of course.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, having known like so many people in the CIA and FBI and people like that, like it's just so funny when people ask me about it. Like they're like, "Oh, you must be in the CIA," and it's just like no, like I've met those people. They're much more boring than you think, and they talk about nothing. I couldn't be one just because like I've got too big of a mouth, as Carmine knows.
I wish I fucking knew that before I told you some of the shit I told you. Holy shit. I wish I knew that. Oh, man.
So weird to watch Preston with nobody playing Minecraft. This isn't referring to like my stream with Destiny. Everybody's like, why is he playing video games? Isn't that rude? And I was like, it's an entire other world. Like this political streaming, like, or streaming in general kind of started with gamer streams, you know? And so that's how it all began. And then like some people were more interesting and talked about other stuff while doing their gamer streams. And so, so I like joined, you know, this part, you know, Destiny is a gamer. Like he used to do it professionally. Like he was a StarCraft gamer. And then he started like talking politics while doing his games, and people started tuning in for his politics talk. So it's like, yeah, I know he was just playing video games, but that's what he does. Also, it's just, you know, like, you know.
Oh, I have a bone to pick with you about that stream. I keep forgetting about this, but what did you say to him? You didn't watch The Departed, or you didn't like it?
No. I liked The Departed. I didn't think it was perfect. I thought it was a very good rough draft. We've talked about this before. I know you love The Departed.
Have we? I love The Departed. It's so good. Is he a cop? Is he a fucking cop?
I
Love The
I
Departed.
think there are certain edits and certain like choices here and there. For example, the rat at the end, like that are just like jarring, and you're like, you should take that out. Like, I think it's like, I think it's very, very good. I think both Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon do a fantastic job in that. Jack Nicholson is fucking just Jack Nicholson, but um, I think there could, certain things could have been done better. But it's a great. I think it's a really good movie that could have been great, like absolutely epic, had just a few small changes been made, but instead we got a rough draft. That's what I felt. That like no one was able to um, uh, stand up to what, Scorsese. Who's the director?
Oh, I believe it was Scorsese.
Yeah, like no one was able to like stand up to him and be like, not this. Like I think Scorsese, like, no, everybody's scared of him, and so because everybody's gonna have good ideas and bad ideas, so you always need a check. You need a check, but if you're too big, no one's gonna ever try to check you. Do you remember all the hype around the DaVinci Code? I do remember all of the hype around the DaVinci Code. I read the first DaVinci Code, and my girlfriend at the time had like absorbed them and was like super into them. And the I think now I don't think they hold up, just because now we're more into like conspiracy culture being a bunch of bullshit and the danger of it. And the DaVinci Code is all about conspiracy culture, but in a positive way, which is funny because the DaVinci Code is there's a Umberto Eco book, the In the Name of the Rose, which is a brilliant book, and a pretty cool movie too. I don't know if you've ever seen it, with Sean Connery and Christian Slater. But it's specifically about conspiracies and drawing lines between points, and how our brain will make shit up and how it doesn't actually work out that way. And then the Da Vinci, and it's all about the faith, and like the faith. It's all about Catholicism and these like hidden codes and messages within like the lore of the church, right? And it's funny is that he made this incredible book, an incredible story about how these codes and patterns are a bunch of bullshit. And then decades later, like the Da Vinci Code comes out with a story about how all of the conspiracies and codes actually mean something, and it becomes like this huge thing. It's kind of funny that it went that way. But yeah, I remember it was a big deal at the time. It was a big deal. What do you think about Doctor Sleep, both as a movie and a sequel? I have not seen or read Doctor Sleep. I've read The Shining and the movie. I've seen the movie. I've seen actually both Shinings. It's one of those situations where I think the movie is better than the book. I think the original is better than the book, but I think it's funny though that like Stephen King hates the Jack Nicholson version of The Shining, which I think is a pretty brilliant movie. Even though, oh my God, have you ever seen the behind the scenes of the making of The Shining, and like the abuse on the set and stuff like that? Carmine?
No, I have not. I'm aware of the Jack Nicholson one and the boring one that Stephen King was behind.
So there's this actress, Shelley Duvall, who she's an incredible actress. But while Kubrick was directing The Shining, he didn't think he was getting enough out of her performance, and her character in the movie is kind of pushed to the brink. and is like super fearful and is like falling apart. And so he felt it necessary to actually push Shelley Duvall to that point, so that it was like, it was essentially forced upon method acting, where if I push the actor to that point, I'm going to get a really good performance because that's the character I want to have on screen. And so she still has a lot of trauma from like how she was like treated and yelled at and screamed at, and verbally abused like on that project. I mean, it worked. It's a fucking incredible movie, but it's like, it does make me think that Kubrick was a fucking piece of shit. Like after that, on like what he did to Shelley Duvall, it's really, really quite horrid. Um, have you seen the X-Files? You strike me as someone who has. Kiss, kiss. Yeah, I've seen the X-Files. I'm a bit mixed on it. I think there's some really good episodes of X-Files, and I think there's some really bad episodes of X-Files. My problem with the X-Files is kind of what it did to America and their perception of government. So like, government is really underfunded, and we don't know what's going on, and it's bureaucratic, and people are clueless. And X-Files like played off of this world where no, the government knows everything, and they're watching you, and they've put everything together, and they're keeping all of these secrets, and they can do so much. And it's unfortunate that this is now kind of the go-to. They took the X-Files like role of government, and they just kind of pushed that forward into everything else. So whether you watch like a, Jerry Bruckheimer movie or whatever, like government, or even a Marvel movie, like government is so well funded, and they just have all of these resources, and they know everything, and they have these databases that show everything about everyone, and the expectations are just insane, and the mistrust of government is insane. And I don't think it's necessary. And when I say like government, I mean like the regular day-to-day like stuff that makes your life better, not politicians at the top doing like bullshit stuff. I'm talking like regular feds, like paying your social security check to you, checking you into a veterans hospital or whatever, or like paving roads, that kind of thing. And I think X-Files did a real disservice to the world by portraying government that way, and feeding into these like conspiracy theories. So it's a little tough with that. Take a shot, but yeah, it's there are some really good episodes of the X-Files though. Preston and Carmine, what would be your strategy if you were both in the Hunger Games? I've never seen the Hunger Games, so I don't really know much about it.
It's Battle Royale. You ever see Battle Royale, the Japanese one?
Okay.
Yeah, so they're taken from like districts in the United States, and then the two kids from each district are forced to fight in Battle Royale until I think only one survives.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd spend most of the time hiding, and then build like Viet Cong style traps in the forest. I think that's probably what I would do.
The arena you fight in, like it can be controlled by outside, like the guy running the whole thing. So let's say the game is getting a little too boring, they'll summon like poison gas, or I think wolves or some shit to hunt your ass down.
Oh, so I wouldn't have time to do that. Like they would.
You'd have time to do it, but you wouldn't be staying there forever.
Okay. Huh. Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess they'd form alliances or something.
They do. In the book, they do form. They're like career kids who volunteer. Sometimes, for the most part, you're chosen, but there are some kids in other districts who volunteer and to fight in the fucking thing, and they're the ones that like form alliances early on, so they can like fucking kill each other at the end.
Yeah. Hmm. The
The best answer for this is just die. That's
just die. It'd be
just fucking
pointless.
die.
Yeah. Star Wars Episode 1 should have been based on the name of the rose. Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon as Adso William, murder mystery and Jedi Order, uncovering Sith plot, Obi-Wan falls in love. That's the movie version. Because I don't think the love plot is in the book. But they needed to add some sex, I think, for the movie version. But yeah, and the name of the rose is kind of funny. It's this murder mystery where one character is Sherlock Holmes and the other character is Watson. But they're monks, right? And they're trying to uncover this like murder mystery, and they keep following all of these like paths, and it turns like nearly everything is a red herring that they follow. They make all of these Sherlockian like deductions, and then they get to the end, and it turns out all their Sherlockian deductions are completely utterly wrong, and the answer was something else. And it's kind of, it's good. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's a good book too. But it's let's see. A lot of it has. There's also like, because it's Umberto Eco. Like there's also this like very high level like theory behind the whole thing, where he kind of believes that nothing like words don't really have meaning, and so when you like analyze stuff, eventually like the meaning of everything kind of falls apart. And is the most pro-good government media Star Trek? I guess the problem is how people see government, because obviously there's a bunch of pro-military shit out there that separates like military from the rest of government, and like you have all these like assholes in the middle of Montana that like hate the government but love the military, and you're like, but that's the largest part of the government employing the most people, like a lot of weird stuff. I just want like a realistic portrayal. Like I don't need a pro government movie. I want a realistic portrayal of government. Like I like The Wire a lot because it's an actual real portrayal of government and like bureaucracy, where you go to see cops and they're not behind these like desks lionizing them like in Barney Miller kind of days, but they're in cubicles and it's all very bureaucratic, and they're filling out forms and everything's getting lost in the mix. And there you work with incompetent people and you work with competent people, and you have to deal with higher ups and the chain of command and things like that, and stuff gets lost. And it's
do you remember really when I first started watching The Wire and I came to you and I was confused for a minute because I was like, wait, Preston, are these guys actively trying to not go out and do their jobs? And you're like, yeah, exactly how it is. I'm like, oh my god, like,
oh yeah,
what, really? Like I was a little confused. Are like, these guys, are they fucking around making jokes? Are they actively trying not to go out and do their jobs?
Yeah, and it's and having known a lot of like criminal investigators in my life, it's very funny like seeing how they work, because it's true that like you need a lot of evidence to go forward with a case, and so your burden of proof is very high. So a lot of times bosses will say like, you've got nothing, we're not, but he's like, I just spent a month like pulling up all of this information. And the higher up, sometimes they're lazy, sometimes they think the person doesn't have enough, sometimes they don't trust the investigator. They're like, well, this is a shitty worker, like I know I'm gonna look at this and it's not going to be an actual case and stuff like that. And the idea that like somehow all criminals are caught, and evidence is so easy to find and put together. It's really it's a real bureaucratic process. Like you can have and I've seen like do nothing managers where everybody under them is frustrated because they're like, oh my gosh, I pulled together all this all this evidence, and these guys are getting away with it, and my supervisor is just lazy. He wants only like 100% open and shut cases, but it's it's bureaucracy. But yeah, I love the Wire because it's a show about bureaucracy. But working in bureaucracy, I'm a little biased. So, do you have any ideas about Jon Snow's plot in the fan fiction? My idea: Jon learns to telepathically communicate with the others while dead and after resurrection. I mean, right now, and everything's up to change because we won't deal with Jon for a while. But right now, I think it's smart to keep Jon dead for a long time, just because we have a lot of other characters to deal with. If there's room, I think Jon can come in, but I think that for now, he needs to step aside for Melisandre and Davos and Theon and Asha in the north and Bran. But we'll see. Everything, nothing. We're way at the beginning, and Jon's not going to come in for later. So we shall see. We're talking about like stuff that if we get to it, it's in like a couple years, So, how can I think the government is underfunded? They're constantly looking for new ways to squander money. See, this is my problem where, like the assumptions in this, right? Like, what do you think squandering is? And, what do you think well-funded is, and which parts of government? Like the fact, I mean, and this is, I'm not picking on Brent here. Like this is a very common belief that government's just like squandering money, like right and left. And I don't know, like necessarily what that means. Like, and here's another one. Like, $6 trillion is underfunded. Well, that you can't give a hard, like, this is a logic thing. Like, just you can't give a hard number and be like, well, that's just too much. Like, how do I know that's too much? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that number is meaningless outside of context. So like I remember reading something that's like, 50 million tons of like greenhouse gases are emitted into the air every year. And I'm like, well, is that a lot? Like, we don't know without the context, like how much is too much and how much is a reasonable amount. You have to put that context in. You can't just like throw shit like out there like that. Like, come on, like use your brain. Like if you really like wrote a paper to somebody, like a professional, and said, oh, the government is overfunded because it's $6 trillion or whatever. Like, do you think that they wouldn't push back on you and say like, well, what do you mean? Like, what's the context? What's the right amount of money? Like how large is the economy? What was last year's spending? What are other countries do as percentage of their population? Like what is too much or too little? Like $6 trillion, like, is that a lot? How can you tell me, like, show me that that's a lot? Like, because 6 trillion isn't that much. Like if we're talking about a different context, like how many stars are in the universe? Well, that's a fuckload more than 6 trillion. I'll tell you that. Like, 6 trillion can be a big number or a small number depending on the context. Like we have no fucking clue what that means. So like, this is a really, really like bad statement. And so you've got to like put things in context. Like, why do you think government is well funded? Like, why do you think they have enough money? Like, what does that mean? Like, what makes you, what is the right amount of money for government to have? What would you like to see cut? Like, what programs would you like to see cut? And why do you have insight and knowledge into why those programs would be cut? Like, do you know? Did you like Twin Peaks when it aired? I did not. I thought it was a little slow. I really liked Fire Walk with Me as a movie. and the interpretation I had for Fire Walk with Me at the time, I think the new series undoes my interpretation of Fire Walk with Me. And so I don't know really how I feel about any of it anymore. Like I had watched Fire Walk with Me and I was like, oh, this is the meaning that I think everything means, you know? But that wasn't really what he was going for when he passed things on. So, I mean, I watched essentially Fire, like Twin Peaks is I watched kind of the beginning and then I got into the second season near the end and was just devastated by the season finale of the series finale at the time of Twin Peaks, where you know Cooper gets stuck in the cabin, and then I watched the movie, and which is a prequel, but there's a little bit of sequel in it, and I thought it was a somewhat fitting ending for Cooper, where like you know it's because he's clearly in love with Laura and he can't be with her. But if you retroactively like take Laura out of her body and put her in the cabin, I kind of was like, oh, I guess he gets to be with Laura in the end. That's kind of, but then they undo all of that, and my interpretation was all off. So I don't know. I haven't caught up really on the last season. I watched a little bit, but ever wonder why A Sacrifice and Fire 80% of the time eat and drink is dribbling down their chin, even high lords and ladies? Do you figure George does that? I think it's a real easy way to. I think it's actually cheap. So one of the tropes about when you watch a horror movie and you go to the coroner, and the coroner is always like eating a sandwich while like dealing with a dead body, and like it's the use of food to make somebody seem disgusting, right? Like they do it in Return of the King too. Like they show the steward eating, and he's eating really sloppy. I just think it's a cheap way to try to make somebody seem disgusting and sloppy and unconcerned with the world around them. Because like the whole idea with the coroner, right, is like, oh, he doesn't understand there's a dead body there. He's so immune to this shit that he's just eating an apple or whatever. They did it in Game of Thrones, right, with Jaqen H'ghar eats an apple while like they find all the dead bodies. Like, oh, he's so like unconcerned with the world around him that he's just consuming food like a big pig at this time, and the food is just all over his mouth and he's disgusting. And it's just a fast, cheap way to make somebody seem like gross and unconcerned and unrelatable, really easily. It's just, I actually think it's dumb, really. Can you get Elio and Linda for a chat since you correspond with them? Maybe. I mean, I've never thought about it. I'd have to think about like what I'd want to talk with them about. I know Linda's not a fan of me, but I mean it's possible. But I don't know. We'll see about like time and everything. People are always asking me about these like different collaborations, but a lot takes like time and work to like go into the collaborations. I'd have to think about like what I want to ask them, because I don't know, like had it been closer to when World of Ice and Fire or something came out, would have been more interesting. But I don't know what they've been up to lately. Maybe are they working on the coffee table books? I don't know. I'm not sure. Have you read the Prague Cemetery? I have not read the Prague Cemetery. Oh gosh, I'm so behind on fucking chats. Let's see. Hold on a second. Prague Cemetery. Oh, it's by Umberto Eco. I have not. I've only read like 3 books by Umberto Eco. My father is a huge fan of his, but he became denser. He became denser as time goes on. In the Name of the Rose is probably his most accessible novel. Americans don't seem to get very little stuff for their buck. Healthcare, social welfare, and infrastructure seem to be severely lacking. But yeah, F-35s. So yeah, I think so. Specifically with healthcare in America, and keep in mind that like most of our healthcare is still private sector. Like it's very inefficient, and so it's less efficient than government paying for it because the market is very, very screwed up. Like normally private sector is much more efficient than government doing something. But with in America, healthcare is much more expensive with private sector than it is with public sector, which is why like, there's push for like Medicare for all and stuff like that I would be completely on board with. Okay. Like medicine in America is completely, utterly broken. And if I had to redo things, like there's a lot of things I would take out. I would if I were to redo like medical in America. First off, I'd set it more up like a car. Like when you get your car for checkups and stuff, you don't go to the mechanic to get your oil changed. You don't go to the mechanic, to get the filters changed. Like you don't go to the mechanic to get gas. And yet, like in America, old people have to go to the doctor every time they want arthritis medication. Women have to go every time they want to get on the pill. Like very routine things. You have to go to get vaccinations. Like there are some very routine things that don't need to be done by full doctors that we could easily have like, clinics, employing, physician's assistants or even lower doing some of these services. And then you can reserve like the doctors for, heavier stuff. But even besides all that, like, yeah, the American insurance companies have kind of a screwed up system where dollars don't mean dollars and everything's bargained. You go in into the, and you get charged whatever, like $100 for an aspirin or whatever, but it's not really $100 because there's like bargaining and negotiation between the insurance company and the hospital afterwards and stuff like that. That just doesn't play into everything. So that's a whole issue in itself. But a big thing is about like what Americans are willing to pay for and what they think is a lot of money. And it's odd when you talk to right wingers about what the government is wasting money on, and they'll really talk about like, oh, foreign aid, and you're like, we don't. America gives almost nothing in foreign aid, and the foreign aid we do give is to usually like an American advisor to like, to go and teach somebody about microfinancing or something. And it's so the money isn't even leaving America. The money is not even like making it into these other people's hands. It's just going to Americans. It's the same with like, and then on the other hand, they'll be like, oh, I'm really for like spending a lot on the military. And they don't realize that a lot of that is like, again, like not going to even paying a soldier's salary or clothing him. Some of it is, a lot of it is, but like a lot of it's going to paying a contractor to provide maintenance on an F-35 or, on a plane, a plane that we never use in war and will likely never use in war. So, when I think of like what's overfunded and underfunded in government, it's very kind of specific on various things, but, I'd never say like overall the government is overfunded or underfunded. I think it's very specific. Yeah, military uses $30 million missile fired at a $250 million airplane from a $1 billion dollar aircraft carrier. I'll take out a guy with $20,000 Toyota. Very efficient. What's funny is that like your military numbers are all way lowballed, and your Toyota is way highballed. But yeah, no, absolutely, it's super inefficient. And even like my work, because I had to go to Iraq and Afghanistan a lot, and you go into Iraq and Afghanistan, and we would joke and talk about everything there being a self-licking ice cream cone, because 92% of people, in these places were there for security and maintenance. So like keeping everybody else alive, and only 8% of people were actually doing their job, like interacting with the foreign government and things like that. So it's things can be when you talk about specific situations, things can be very inefficient. But when you actually ask people like what they think the government should cut, you get crazy answers. Like if it were up to me, I'd be like, why do we have military bases in the middle of the heartland America? And the answer is, well, we want to pay people to if you're in Alabama, there's not much economy there, so they'll have a military base to give people jobs, and try to bring money to the state. It's like, what is the service of this military base? Are we thinking that like, Mexico is going to invade us by sea? No, like it's just there as a form of welfare. So it's, I would say like shut down that base, but you're never going to get that base shut down. Just politically speaking, it's just, but meanwhile, people will be like, oh, cut the Commerce Department. And you're like, you have no idea what the Commerce Department does, and you're telling me to like cut it. Let's see here. Doesn't like 90% of the money go to Social Security and military, and the rest of the government has to fight for the remainders? I don't know if it's 90%, but it's pretty high. Let's look at the military Social Security. Okay, so what do we got here? All right, let's see. I can bring this picture up. Okay. So 2019. All right, this is our revenue. So when you look at the U.S. government, what's funny is, so a lot of people talk about, oh, I pay so much in taxes, and they'll always talk about income taxes, but payroll taxes is your Social Security tax. So that after 100,000, you don't pay payroll taxes. So when people say like, so it's actually kind of a fucked up system, because this is a flat tax that ends at 100,000, so it's regressive. So while this is a progressive tax where the poor pay very little, and then while individual income tax is a rather progressive tax, where the once you get up to the high tax brackets, it's like 35%. But in the lower, you don't pay anything. In fact, there's a reverse. There's earned income tax credit for that. But people never mention the payroll tax, which is the regressive tax that the poor people pay and the rich people don't. They pay it on their first 100,000, but if you earn $50 million, like, that's nothing. So so like when people bitch, they never talk about payroll tax. But so then, okay, spending of the military, spending of the government, 23% is on. So we're gonna have. So they have mandatory spending, and then we're going to have which this can't be changed year to year. Like the president and everybody, like this, when they put in a budget, this doesn't change. So when you say like, oh, we need to cut, like the government or people are spending too much, like, well, the president has no influence over this. This is mandatory. So we're talking, let's see, Medicare, Social Security, 23%, Medicare. That's essentially for old people's healthcare. Medicaid is for poor people's Medicaid is poor people's health care. Income security, I think, is that might be, is that earned income tax credit? And then federal retirement, 4%. Veterans programs, I think that's like hospitals and stuff like that. And then other programs offsetting receipts. Defense spending, discretionary, is half defense, half non-defense. Oh, and then 8% for interest. So if we're really adding up the things that like non-defense discretionary income is fifth. So it wasn't too much off when you're talking about like 90%, when it's 10% that they have to fight for, it's 15% that people have to fight for. So like when Republicans talk about like cutting the budget, they're never talking about cutting military, and you can't cut mandatory, you can't cut interest. So we are talking about like the remaining 15%, which is hardly anything. So, so you can go into defense, which is another 15%, but even defense is getting to the point where, honestly, it's getting to the point where it's like, you can't make massive changes, to find money. Like a lot of our budget is mandatory. So you're just kind of done. Yeah, 99% of service never serve. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it all depends on what service is, like even if you're in Iraq, like you're not, most people are not off into the field, like fighting people. So, these ideas of like, oh, like finding a veteran and being like, oh, well, like, thank you for your service. Like, I mean, what does that really mean? Like, was he if you think he's dodging bullets, like, that's not the case, which is fine. Like, I don't think you necessarily should be, but I think like thanking your local garbage collector, is often equivalent. I mean, your garbage collector is just providing a service for you, right? A needed service, a very needed service. He's providing, like, somebody collects the garbage from the hospital, right? Which means the garbage collector is helping save lives because they're taking away the hospital's garbage, right? So in that sense, when you like talk to like a logistics person or the person that literally takes out the trash for like the military or whatever, like they're getting thanked for their service, but the connection is not as close, Can we have pie charts next stream? We'll work on it. That's the thing, is we never do think these people get shit on a lot. Are economic hitmen real or conspiracies? I'm not sure. I'll have to look specifically up this, what this means. Where he cheated countries around the globe. Career of engineering consultant whose job was convince leaders of underdeveloped countries to accept substantial development loans for large construction and engineering projects. Okay. Oh. Okay, this gets into a few things. So when we're talking about a lot of people wonder about whether developing countries, when they take loans from, say, the World Bank, if they are getting into situations where they can never pay the interest back, and is it just a cycle of debt? And should they have not? Was it a predatory kind of situation where the World Bank kind of forced them into these situations? And having known a lot of people that work at the World Bank, like and like what they do, it's usually not really the case. Like these are most of these loans are for like big kind of needed things, like establishing central banks and like um, uh, setting up like oversight organizations to make sure there's less corruption and stuff like that. So you can sort of buy into the very kind of like hipster far left idea that these large organizations, like say the American government has USAID and the Millennium Challenge Corporation under it, and the World Bank and IMF, and if you don't understand very much about it, it's very easy to fall into this narrative that we're getting the whole world to go into debt and buy into our evil capitalist system. And it's not like you can't find a kernel of truth in that, but for the most part, the work they do is actually pretty good. Now, if a country is getting into these situations where they've got a lot of debt and they can never pay back these loans that they take, they'll probably just end up in a situation of default or loan forgiveness eventually, which a lot of people are talking about. Like there's a big movement for African loan forgiveness, and because it's getting to the point where it's not that much money to the rest of the world, but it's a lot of money to African countries, and I think that's probably gonna happen in the end. So I'm not super concerned about it, but we'll see. It's like Sri Lanka taking the pay-to-play seaports from China. It didn't work out for them. I mean, China's economic, colonialism is a bit harsher than the West's. They will set up Chinese companies and have exclusive rights and ship in Chinese workers. So not even like the Africans are getting paid, and get resources out, and it's they really play hardball. They're certainly not as kind as and giving as the West. But you got to remember that Chinese corporations are partially owned by the Chinese government, and so they kind of feed into themselves. While the U.S. government does do things for American businesses in general, but it's kind of a rarity that they go out specifically to bat for a certain specific American corporation. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, like especially with like oil in Iraq and stuff like that, but the American government tries to be a little more neutral and try to create just opportunities for American businesses in general or Western businesses in general to come into a country. It's not as brutal and specific as the Chinese government. Like, you will open up to this corporation, to this company, and this company will ship over its workers, and we will take these and these resources, and in return we'll build you a road, yeah. What's your favorite medieval weapon? Doesn't have to be medieval necessarily, just as long as it was invented before firearms. So this is a funny question. If you look at the idea of medieval for Europe, it all depends on what part of Europe you're talking about. So keep in mind, like, while England and France had guns and were doing things in a completely different era, Eastern Europe was still like wearing armor and having horses, and it's very, very much looked like medieval. So you can kind of get some really kind of interesting weapons. Like when you go to a museum in Eastern Europe and it's like, this armor was used in like 1650 or 1700 or 1750, and you're like, a suit of armor with like a sword, right? Like, and so you actually end up seeing, literally, there are swords with guns on them that you can find in Eastern Europe. There's some in the West too, like swords with guns on them. But keep in mind that, like, at the time, the Western Europe was fully into the Renaissance, and so the swords got thinner. They could puncture right through armor. They started, gunpowder was coming in. They were using cannons and muskets and stuff later on. So it's kind of fun. But I don't know. I mean, I kind of have been, I sometimes think that the intricacies of crossbows are really fun to look at. I like some of the weapons that just don't fit. Like I say, when you see a gun attached to a sword, or just weird weapons like that, always pique my interest a little bit. When you actually look at like real medieval weapons that were actually used in, say, 800 AD, like middle of the Middle Ages, they're not very interesting looking. It just looks like a big fucking hunk of iron. So to find the really beautiful ones, you actually have to find like really late high medieval stuff, or like into Renaissance Eastern Europe, to really kind of look at like what's sort of fun. So I do think the kind of, it's not really the medieval age Eastern Europe stuff is the most beautiful and interesting. It's certainly the most ornate. It's the most beautiful. Is this sort of late like Eastern Europe stuff? I think is the most beautiful stuff. You'll see like just beautiful horse armor, beautiful stuff that because the metalworking had got really good, but it's Eastern Europe, so they're still using medieval weaponry. So I don't know. That's kind of my answer on that. China Belt and Road Initiatives is bankrupting developing countries. It can be. I mean, I have to go back into. I'm not the expert on Africa economics or anything like that. Halliburton entered the chat. Halliburton changed its name to KBR like 20. How many years ago did Halliburton change its name to KBR? They might have even changed it past KBR, but Halliburton, it's actually more about like providing food services than anything else. KBR. When did Halliburton change their name to KBR? Oh, Halliburton changed their name to KBR in 2002. Acquisition of Dressler Industry in 98, Kellogg Brown and Roof, renamed to KBR. Yeah, in 2002. I always think it's funny that people call them still Halliburton. Like even at the peak of like their them being infamous, they were called Halliburton. There's another one, PAE, where like they've changed their name to PAE in like 1990 or something, but some people still call them Pacific Architects and Engineering, which is kind of funny. But they make a lot of but KBR, like, they do the mess halls often on military bases and stuff like that. They make a lot of money on that, providing very expensive comfort food to the troops. Isn't that just a bayonet? It's true, but these were like we're talking about the swords and the guns, but like some of them were like bayonet is like gun first, like sword second. And you're right that like in practice, probably that bayonet spear got used a lot more than the actual like gunpowder. I fully admit on that, but it does seem like as a function, it was like, musket first with a dagger on the end or a blade on the end. Well, these were like, there are some like you'll find like it's an actual sword with like, pommel sword. And then on the top, there'll be like this like weird gun, like idea. I think it was a lot of times it's just done for, a lot of times these weren't actually practical. They were just kind of done for the fun of it. Let's talk about we haven't talked about Ice and Fire at all this stream. What do you think about Martin's recent blog post about winds moving the plot away from the show, what would big changes be? By the way, Carmine, have you fallen asleep? I think he's gone. Um, the I don't think there's anything new with what he was talking about. I think most of the big fans were like, he said this before that like the plot was not going to be the same, and so I don't necessarily think that it was much to his story. What will be the big changes? I think that, well, first of all, Dream of Spring is never coming out, but I think kind of the big things are just like the importance of these large characters. Like clearly, Ariane Martel um, is a huge character. Ariel Hotel is a huge character. Lady Stoneheart is a huge character. The Brienne story is going to be big. In his mind, like, will there be a Dany invading on dragons and a dance with the dragons on the ground? I think that like rather than fighting Cersei, like in George's mind, she was going to be fighting Aegon, and then maybe after going north, she would have come back and dealt with Cersei. Like like in the show, it was Cersei go north, come back, fight Cersei again. But I think that it's probably Aegon going north, come back, fight Cersei. Some of the stuff, like some of the battles, with Jon might have been with Stannis first. Things like that. Obviously, like the obviously the grayscale plot was given to Jorah instead of Jon Con and things like that. So, I think those are kind of the big things. But I think in his mind, yeah, Bran is going to be king. That kind of stuff. John would have to kill Dany in his original outline. Like, will that happen now? I think he always writes organically, so it probably doesn't matter. But how could it end up the same? I mean, if you had the show end a certain way, wouldn't you want to have it be different? So yeah. Most of seasons 5 to 8 were different. Yeah, I mean, they were definitely different. The question is whether like some of the main like plot points are still kind of hit, right? I do feel like there was some checklist stuff, like their R plus L equals J reveal, John King in the North kind of stuff, like Dany landing on Dragonstone, Bran becoming king, kind of stuff. Maybe even, and I would even say maybe even a white dragon or blowing up her enemies with wildfire kind of stuff that could have been plot points that George kind of mentioned. I mean, he certainly mentioned like the burning of Shireen was apparently one, or hold the door were all his were definite plot points that he revealed to them. I know Bran being king is one that's is confirmed as an actual Bran, as an actual George kind of thing. So, I mean, I don't know if she's going to blow up the Sept specifically, just because Jaime said that they found wildfire underneath the Sept, but it's still a Chekhov's gun that there's lots of wildfire left under King's Landing. So it could have been something like that. It feels a bit George R. R. Martin, and I say that because there are other places in the story where it's very Red Wedding-ish, right? You get all your adversaries together and then you just kill them. And so, you have parallels to Summerhall. You have parallels to the Shield Hall at the Wall, where all the Wildling chieftains have like come together. So like, you definitely have like this idea that George has thought about. Oh, how do I get all of the villains together in one place and then just kill them, burn them to death? So like Cersei blowing up the Sept, it fits so much with the story that I do like. Even though I've seen the interviews with Dan and Dave saying like, oh, they had this on the wall and they needed to put it in, but I don't know if that was a George point specifically, or what, but it feels like a George plot point. That all of our enemies would be in one place and then they'd be burned with wildfire. Like, it just feels that way, right? If Preston Greenfield has a horrible death in Winds of Winter, can we agree that George washes your stream? I think you mean, well, Preston Greenfield already died in a Clash of Kings at the riot, trying to save the High Septon who was torn apart. But I think if I think what you mean is like if Balon's Swan died like in a similar fashion as in the Hota chapter or something that he would watch, or if he had something like super grueling, or if there were you're saying if there's like another character named Preston that dies really really horribly, then he watches my streams. But no, I don't think George R. Martin knows who I am. Yeah, that's the thing, is the blowing up the Sept is a brilliant way to get rid of lots of excess characters in a believable manner, right? Yeah. And it also feels George R. Martin on so many levels. Like, you're blowing out, you're killing religion and entering the modern age. Like, there's this like death of God kind of aspect to it, right? And because at the same time, like, Bran would be destroying the werewood net, or the werewood net would be getting destroyed at the same time. So you'd have these like parallel situations of like God being dead and man needing to find, like, forge their own destiny going forward. And you'd have them like happening at once, which it's just so George, right? Like, it does seem like, Bran's going to leave the werewood net and the werewood net's going to get destroyed, right? So like, if the Sept is happening at the same time, like, that's a pretty good, an interesting theme right there. Gets into, George's ideas about existentialism and stuff like that. So it feels very George to blow up the Sept, even though there's no wildfire under the Sept right now, or at least maybe they only found one cache. Do you think the Summer Isles will unite? I don't know if, I understand that like there's this like tiny little irrelevant Summer Island plot with Jalabar Zoe that is really in the background, really really far in the background of Ice and Fire. So Jalabar Zoe is an exile of the Summer Isles, and he like came to court thinking he could maybe get Robert to help him retake the Summer Isles. I think he's he's the exiled prince of the Red Flower Vale. And so Robert keeps him around as a curiosity because he thinks it's really interesting having the Summer Islander at court. And he keeps telling him like every year, like next year I'll help you. But will it ever get to, will this plot ever come back? I don't know. Like Jalabar Zoe, I think he's in the dungeons right now. He might just end up dying off. But it's something to think about. I would like maybe for the fan fiction we'll have something about the Summer Island plot, Summer Islander plot come back. But about Jalabar Zoe being actually this really significant exile. Maybe he'll get a dragon and invade the Summer Isles and become its new Dragon King. Howland Reed is the High Sparrow theory. This is always like Howland Reed being the High Sparrow was one of those that like the fandom kind of puts up as like one of these theories that they really hate because it's we've got this missing character, Howland Reed. Where could he be? High Sparrow is this mysterious character that comes out of nowhere. Could they be the same? be really tough for them to be the same. Howland Reed would all of a sudden have to be like this like incredible actor, know all the stuff about this religion, and get everybody to follow him. Um, will you make Darkstar's dialogue intentionally corny, or will you try to improve on George, making him unintentionally cringe? I think Darkstar has only one line that's really bad, and that's "I'm Darkstar and I'm of the night." Other than that, I mean, I guess like he says like this is how you start a war. Maybe that could be considered a little. Maybe that could be considered a little cheesy, but I definitely don't think it's all of his dialogue is bad. I do like how he throws shade at Gerald Dane. Not he throws shade at I'm sorry, Arthur Dane. And I do like, him saying, yeah, he's a great hero. Oh, he's good. He had a great sword. I do think he's got some good lines. Or like, why is he the only Dane? My house has been around since the dawn of days. How come he's the only Dane that anyone talks about? And of course, like everybody talks about Ashara Dane too. So I do think he's got some good lines. I don't hate on him as much as a lot of people do. But I think like his name Darkstar is just it just feels very already it's kind of like Star-Lord being a lame name, right? Like there's so many superheroes like just who threw star into their name and dark into their name, like, and so Darkstar just being kind of the combination of two like very cheap ways to try to make yourself seem cool. And so people hated the name, and then him saying "I'm of the night" was a really lame line, so everybody kind of hated him. But I think once you kind of admit that like once you kind of come to the conclusion that he was falsely accused of his crime, you naturally like come to more sympathy for him. So this is completely true. 90s internet aliases. Darkstar would completely be a 90s internet alias. Before they all started being like, cum lover 13552, like in fact there seems to be a Darkstar skateboard. Let's see here. Let's look at the disambiguation of Darkstar. Newtonian. Oh, there's a 1919 film called Darkstar, a 1955 film called Darkstar. Here we go. Darkstar is a film, 1974 film by John Carpenter. And then Darkstar, H.R. Geiger's World. Oh, that's a documentary in 2014. Our Darkstar is literature. Darkstar. Oh, there's a Marvel Comics Darkstar. Oh, right. He was in Alpha Force. Am I? No, Soviet Supremes. I think it's North Star who is in Alpha Force. And there's Dark Stars from DC. Jesus Christ. A group of intergalactic policemen. And then Darkstar, an issue of comic series Transformers. Darkstar Comics, fictional comic book company. Jesus. Man. There's a Darkstar in Ben 10. Darkstar is a novella by Jesus Christ. It's just there's an English psychedelic band named Darkstar, an English electronic duo called Darkstar. Oh my god. Oh wait, and there's a fucking song by the Grateful Dead called Darkstar. Fucking hey, yeah. That's gonna be the one that I knew that one too. Man. So George definitely would know about that one. He'd probably be focused on as well the John Carpenter movie. the plot of Darkstar. In the mid 22nd century, man has begun to colonize interstellar space. They're looking for unstable planets that might threaten future colonization. Darkstar seems to be an android that support has a lot of malfunctions. Huh. Oh well. Weird. Oh. You know that Lysine going to the wall, but the Pirate King attacked y'all. Trees Town never made sense. Why would they go there? I'm trying to think of which Pirate King, because we've got a lot of Pirate Kings right now. So a pirate, the Corsair King attacked Tall Trees Town. And there's rumors of that, and some people think it was Euron. But then again, there's Salador Sand going all the way up to the wall and perhaps down south again. Though we're not really sure where Salador Sand is. There's interesting. Let me think if I can find it. The map of maps of ship routes, because some people have actually mapped out where all the ships are in Ice and Fire, which is kind of interesting. Let's see here if I can find it. This one has some of it. Let's see if I can do this. Oops, I've got the wrong one here. So we've got, and this is all a lot of speculation here. So if Euron if he's the Corsair King in looking for soldiers in Slaver's Bay, he would have come down to the Basilisk Isles, and then there would be an attack on Tall Trees Town, and then he kind of makes it back up. Meanwhile, Salador Sand is perhaps coming south, raiding in this area, and then the Golden Company is coming through, and then the Red Wines are coming through, and then maybe Alayne Waters is coming through, though Glytus would argue that Waters is heading to the wall, and he's heading with Stannis, which it makes sense, considering that Pycelle's always right. And then Manderley's fleet kind of chilling out here. I've seen one as well with other ships with the Bravosi ships that get found and pick up slavers and get picked up. But this is a pretty good basic one. If we think so, do these things all make sense? I don't know. I mean, George has left everything kind of ambiguous that you're literally supposed to be wondering which fleets are whose in figuring these things out. But there's some fun stuff with this. It does seem insane that all of these fleets came into the waters at the same time. Salador Sand, Alayne Waters, the Golden Company, and the Red Wine Fleet. And the Golden Company running into none of them is pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy that they just pass each other. Does the Faith of the Seven sell indulgences? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I've not heard about that. Huh. I have to think about that. When he drops your shitty theory video from 4 years ago. It's not a bad video. I'm totally down with that. It's the the Gladys theory videos are not bad. The watched your talk with Destiny, thought it was fantastic. Yeah, I mean he's a pretty good talker. I'm a pretty good talker. We just kind of like went all over the place. Some people got upset, some people were happy. Um the It's a weird thing about, and I'm going to say this, it's not just about online personalities, but it's about like celebrities and politicians and everything, is that, in real life, people say shitty things all the fucking time, right? Like your friends say shitty things, you say shitty things, your significant others say shitty things, your parents say shitty things, like, and you just kind of learn to forgive and forget because like people say weird things. And I always think about like these streamers that stream like 12 hours a day, or tweet all the fucking time, and then somebody takes like one of their comments or one of their tweets out of context, and then all of a sudden like people kind of hate on them. And it's funny that we don't give, the people aren't willing to give the same sort of like forgiveness for people in their real life. Like, aren't regular people allowed to say stupid things, like, and us forget about them? So I don't know. So it's there's some definitely got some weird comments from people like, oh, on this and this day, like Destiny said this. How can you support this person? It's like, well, he can say like, people are allowed to say a few dumb things. I've said a lot of dumb things in my life, a lot of fucking dumb things in my life. And if people like went through my streams, I'm sure you could find a lot of fucking stupid shit that make me look really bad, especially out of context. And so I think there's a lot of weird stuff with that. I mean, I can like all of these different people, and every once in a while, and understand that they hate each other and understand that they're very flawed human beings, because all human beings are kind of flawed, right? So that's it, and this is another kind of funny thing about, it's an interesting point though about keyboard courage is, I used to be a pretty edgy person. Like when you run into somebody in real life and you're edgy, like, you are at least there with your real name and real face to take the heat. And so I do think that, a streamer who has his real face and real name out there and like is saying risky shit all day long, is taking some big risks, while like people with aliases, can say shit all day long and be hidden, and not take any heat, and can kind of, judge whoever they want and stuff like that. Stuff like everyone is a eugenicist. Everyone is a eugenicist. I'll continue on. Well, not literally speaking, because eugenics is specifically when the government chooses a path for human society to take. But when I'm saying like everybody worries about like having like good genes pass on, like everybody fucking worries about having good genes pass on. Okay. Nobody like does not want to do that. Like nobody is looking at like Quasimodo and thinking, oh my God, can't wait to have children with Quasimodo so I can have a litter of Quasimodo children. Like no one's fucking doing that. But like, I'll fucking die on this hill. And there's a reason that there is a reason why I die on this hill. And that is, there are weird forced birthers that go around in various states trying to get abortion banned if the woman is carrying a fetus with a major birth defect, and they'll be like, "Hey guys, how can you support eugenics?" And they'll try to take away the right of a woman to have an abortion, by pushing forward this like disingenuous claim that they care about eugenics. And so like an unthinking kind of, liberal person will be like, well, eugenics is bad, therefore like I should ban like people having abortions if there's a severe birth defect. And it's like, no, that's not what eugenics is. Eugenics is when like the state is deciding what are the good and bad criteria. Like taking away human choice is the bad part. Like, so that's the that's the weird thing. This is why I get a little upset when people throw around the word eugenics at everything. Eugenics is kind of specific. Not having children so you don't have to worry about good genes. To each his own. Eugenics is forced sterilization. Eugenics can be forced sterilization. But we gotta remember, like, it's all about the state deciding what is good for people, not people deciding what's good for themselves. And so, you kind of, you have these situations, like say you have a severe, like, so I had a friend who worked at I've probably told this story before, but I had a friend who worked at a home for severely mentally challenged individuals. Okay. And it was a major fucking problem that rando dudes from off the street would come in and fuck the women there. Okay. This was a major, major problem. Okay. Now, so, it's, and a lot of these severely, mentally challenged individuals with disabilities, like they don't know what's fucking going on. Like they're like, oh, I'm feeling horny. Some random dude is like rubbing me. Okay, let's do it. Now, so he said it was like every week. Like, and they tried, they had security. People would slip through. Okay. But every week, like somebody with with severe retardation, like was pregnant, and they would have, you call up the family, and the family agrees, and everybody goes, and they get an abortion, and they come back because the eventual child, if there were one, would also have severe retardation, and if this happened, right? So this was like a real problem. Okay, so some of the parents, like, had situations where they're like, what, it's just so much of a problem. Like, let's just go in and have our daughter's tubes tied, and then we don't have to worry about this stuff. Okay. So now you can take it from another situation, another perspective, and be like, oh my God, like, holy shit, like forced sterilization of mentally retarded people. That's eugenics. And you're like, fucking, like, look at the whole fucking context of this goddamn situation. Like, you have a woman that can't consent to sex, like getting raped consistently by randos that come in off the street. Like, do you want a situation where she's forced to birth, and then the state has to raise like another severely mentally retarded, like person? Like, it's a whole weird, fucked up situation. And to sit in a high and mighty, like armchair and back and be like, well, this is eugenics and eugenics is bad. You're just not a fucking realist, and you're not on the ground. Okay. We live in a fucking world where there's severely, mentally challenged people with disabilities who are regularly raped because this is the fucking world we live in, and it's fucked up. And we have to fucking like provide services. Like, oh my God, like, fine. If you want, like, regular abortions for these women, that's fine. But again, like, how do the women even consent to abortions? How do they can't consent to the sex? How do they consent to the abortions? It's all fucking like messy. It's really fucking messy, And so this is pretty disgusting. Yeah, Forrest Gump and Jenny be like, right. It's like how that became a fucking like movie where some, like where this is like in a major movie where like, a mentally retarded person is who doesn't really understand what's going on. Like, consents to sex. It's just fucking air. Like, Preston, pro eugenics Preston time. This isn't eugenics. Like I said, like eugenics is when the state is like, you know what? We really need to get blonde haired people. Like, like, I mean, not disagreeing, but is it 100%? No. And that's what makes it even worse, right? Like when somebody's like, well, it's a 50-50 shot. You're like, oh, fuck. Or even if it's a 25% shot, even if it's a 5% shot, like 1 in 20 is fucking nothing. Would you play Russian roulette with a gun with a 1 in 20? Like, oh my God. Like, it's the whole situation is just so fucked up. And to have anybody like come in with their fucked up absolute like morality on these really messy situations is just like, I just don't want to go there. Like, leave this to the family's fucking choice. Like, leave this all to the family's choice and let there be maximum options available to deal with this very, very difficult situation. So, yeah, that's the thing, is it's rhetoric, Preston. That's what anti-abortionists are great at. Oh yeah, and they like, this is these fucked up things where you start getting like, cases where like a guy kills a pregnant woman and he gets charged with double homicide. It's like, I know what you're fucking doing. Okay, I know what you're fucking doing. You're trying to get fucking personhood for a fetus so that you can push something else later and be like, and I've seen forced birthers like make these arguments like, well, already on the books we have situations with double homicides. Yeah, because you fucking snuck that shit in and forced it. So it's just yeah, abortion should, absolutely is woman's right and should be messaged as such. It's just this oh fuck! I've seen some crazy 5% chances hit. It's an XCOM. Yeah. Oh, Carmine's back. You're out, dude.
Sorry about that. I was taking care of something. Let's.
Oh, you came back for you like eugenics, not eugenics discussion, because I like to say none of this is eugenics, but it's fine. It's
I saw something about abortion. So we talking about the forced birthers again, or what are we doing?
I was talking about this. I was talking about a friend of mine used to work at a home for mentally retarded, severely mentally disabled people, and like every week, randos off the street would sneak in all the fucking time and rape these women. And they didn't know what was going on. And so like every week there was a pregnancy, and like he said it was like this long process of like calling the family and going to get an abortion and things like this. But it gets really confusing because like to people pushing anti-eugenics laws, it's like, oh my gosh, you're forcing, this woman can't consent to an abortion, so you're forcing her to have an abortion, and you're like, oh God, like she was fucking, like she was raped, like she couldn't consent to that, like it's these horrible, messy real world situations that like people with moral absolutism like come in and try to like make really restrictive laws because they just don't want a fucking abortion around,
That is horrific. Also, why? What's up with the? I left right around the time Elio and Linda popped up. What's happening with Elio and Linda?
Nothing. Just somebody asked if I could get Elio and Linda on the stream, and I was like, I don't know.
Yo, what's up with everybody asking you to collab with people? Why don't you guys go and ask those guys?
Collabs. I don't know. It's like it's what people talk about. It's like Beyond the Wall episode, right? You get all these people that normally don't interact, and you put them beyond the wall, and the conversations they're gonna have. It's the Hound and Jorah and Gendry. Like, what's gonna happen?
The funny thing is, someone was like, "Yo, if these podcasters got George R. Martin, you guys should get George R. Martin." I have nothing to say to George. Like, I can't think of one fucking thing. Maybe you do, but obviously George can't reveal anything.
George can't reveal anything. He doesn't like to talk. He likes to change the subject. And when I tried to talk to him about his previous work, figuring that he was sick of talking about his other work, he said he didn't remember it. So you're kind of right that there's not much to say to him.
There's not much there. You know who I like talking to, and this is why I like getting people like I like people getting outside the Game of Thrones community, like people like Trey and like Phil and like all these random people, because these are people who love the series, but their channel is not based around the series. So them coming on and talking about the series is great because they have all these ideas that you haven't heard of. They have all these opinions and stuff, and it's just like that's more fun than like people in the Game of Thrones community.
Yeah, and it's also nice to step back from being in the fucking like theory echo room where we're thinking about certain things and we think certain things are normal. Like, like us debating the future of Bonifer Hasty is not something like a casual is going to be doing. A quick question here. Ex Rowan is an agrarian lord. Hightowers get his wealth from ship's trade culture. Will George R. Martin write their motivations based on these factors as much as hostages, inheritance, and marriages? The answer is he does it mainly on hostages, inheritance, and marriages. George R. Martin is really bad about economics. He's not it's one of the things that it's not one of the things he thinks about correctly, like when he makes the Lannisters the richest people in the kingdom, they wouldn't be. The Tyrells would be much, much, much richer in a feudalistic, agrarian based society, considering they have the Reach produces all of the fucking food. They would be way richer than the Lannisters and their gold. But, but what are you going to do? But yeah, it's mainly about hostages, inheritance, marriages, alliances in previous wars. Who squired for whom is a huge one. He loves the fucking who squired for whom. If you squired for somebody, well, fuck, you're going to follow them to the ends of the goddamn earth. Yeah, I mean, I wish he was in more of it about that, right? About what percentage, but he's also kept the economics a little shady. We're not really sure how it all works, Let's see here. What did I see? I see something. used to work in the film industry. Don't meet your heroes. By the way, I listened to this podcast, which was the most wonderful fucking podcast ever. But it was about not meeting your hero. But the whole podcast was about how, and she kept it very, very broad. She's like, I'm a writer, and one day I met my hero, my fucking hero. And, he said oh, you can email me about X and X project and I'll take a look, follow up with me. And she's like, oh my God, I'm freaking the fuck out. And he gave her his email address. And so she proceeds to wait the perfect amount of time. It's 1 week, and she's ready to craft her email, and she's got to be clever, but also she doesn't want to be too overbearing, and she's really wordsmithing it all. And she's saving a draft, and she writes another one. She saves a draft. She's working over it over the course of 3 or 4 days, and then she finally comes out with her perfect email that's clever and gets to the point, like is hey, just wanted to send like a follow-up, like she wanted to make it casual enough but professional enough and stuff like this. And she finally sends it off, and then she checks her like sent. She gets nervous, and so she like checks her sent to read it over again, and she looks in her sent box, and there's fucking 50 messages to the dude. Every draft of her email that she had like saved and like restructured got accidentally sent. Oh, actually, fuck. I'm not even like telling the story correctly. She sent the email, and then like 2 weeks later, she hadn't heard back, so she got worried. So then she discovers that like 50 fucking versions, like every edit that she'd made, like that version got sent to the dude. And so his like box got filled with like fucking 50 messages from this woman, and she thought that he was just fucking like, she's just like, oh my god, he thinks that I am absolutely bonkers nuts, and it was just kind of like how she dealt with in her mind, like how she like came to terms with the fact that like she had met her hero, and she'd fucked it up, like for like with like being massively embarrassed about it. In fact, it might have not even, I'm messing the story up, it might have even been like not 2 weeks, it might have been like she hadn't heard from him in like a year, and so she got depressed and then came out of that and then did this a whole other project, and then discovered, and she was like, oh my god, had I found this immediately after, I would have like quit writing forever. But because I'd gotten depressed and then decided to work on this other project on my own after getting like not getting a message back, she like came out okay. But it was like all of this like really lucky timing. Like had she discovered that she'd sent like 50 emails to her fucking hero. Ugh. Man, oh man. George R. R. Martin is a communist. Of course he doesn't understand economics. Burr. Let's see here. Somebody asked really quick, are there big sports? What are the big sports in Taiwan? They like baseball. They like baseball and soccer and basketball here. They're kind of into the American sports. But baseball was introduced to the Japanese fairly early on, and then the Japanese had Taiwan at the time and Korea at the time. So both Korea and Taiwan are super into baseball as well. Man. It is true that most people that you meet in life don't meet their expectations. Because how can one, right? How good are we, like on how good are, most of us are like, our genius comes from like sitting down and like crafting something over many hours and having like hard work. It's not necessarily like being witty in the moment. But man, have you ever met any famous people, Carmine?
Yeah, a couple, but they were just like whatever, just normal people who just happened to have that face. That's it. Nothing interesting that stands out.
I mean, like when I was in high school and college, when I was super into like punk rock, like I met a lot of like musicians who I was like super into, and then you meet them and you're like, oh, you're kind of just like a regular person, if not a somewhat dumb person. Like, you're really fucking good at like producing like music, but having a regular normal conversation, you're nothing special. But that's the thing, is everybody's just a regular person. George R. R. Martin is a little different in that he's remarkably like uncharismatic, which is quite shocking. And not very not very good at conversation. But Preston Jacobs is the Ian MacKay of A Song of Ice and Fire chat. You know, a lot of people have met Ian MacKaye, and like he can come off as kind of a jerk as well when you meet him in real life. Um, I met no effects, and they were a bunch of half drunk douchebags. Shouldn't have been surprised. It's true, and like I've listened to a lot of stuff from Fat Mike, and like in like podcasts and everything, he's just kind of a dumbass. But like he has really like some of his lyrics are super fucking clever and like really good. And yet, like when you talk to him in real life, it's just nothing. But you know, like I think like if you guys have ever listened to a NoFX song called The Decline, it's really a fucking genius goddamn song. Like it's this 18-minute song that has no choruses, that's super political and super clever lyrics. Really just it's an incredible song. And I'm just like, my God, like how, you know, a human being composing this is just like, but it's just, yeah, you meet somebody in real life and they're just kind of a dumbass, you know, what are you going to do? Galitis met Stephen Fry once, who is this guy. Actor, director, you know, I'm trying to think of there's this line in Notting Hill or something where one of the characters like makes a big deal out of meeting a one person, and I can't even remember who it was. It was like nobody, but obscure punk reference for the old kids in chat. It's fucking incredible, you know? Like, some bands don't write their own lyrics. It's true. I mean, obviously, like when you're like Aerosmith, you have like song consultants and stuff, and like same with, you know, Metallica. They have producers and stuff. But like a lot of these like small time dudes, like no, they do their own shit because it's just their small time. So it's like, what can you do? Plus, it's just kind of like the attitude of punk rock, which is like, no, I'm doing DIY, do it yourself kind of stuff. Huh. I got to hang out with George Clinton in Parliament at a restaurant where I cooked. Best night of my life. I had a friend who got to hang out with the band Fishbone, and he also said like they were the coolest motherfuckers he'd ever met, and they were so cool. And he like was a sort of Fishbone fan, and then he became like a mega Fishbone fan after hanging out with them. But everybody thinks of different people when you meet Stephen Fry. Is there? Let's see how many. Yeah, I don't know if like. I guess people know him from what? From he was in Harry Potter, right? Yeah. Oh, you met the Misfits? Like with Danzig? Man. or post Danzig. That's kind of the big question. I'm trying to think if I met Keanu Reeves once. He was nice. I met Henry Rollins once. He was kind of a douchebag.
Did you ever see Henry Rollins in Sons of Anarchy?
No, I only watched seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he was in season 2. He was the Nazi.
Oh, right. I guess I only watched half of season 2.
Henry Rollins plays the perfect, like, angriest man who I guess is not really angry. Just if you Google up Henry Rollins, and if he's not smiling, he looks like he's pissed.
Yeah.
All the time.
He is pissed all the time.
What does he have to be pissed about?
Uh, everything. I mean, he's very, 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 very political. But also,
Oh
like,
boy.
just in life, he's not a very happy individual because he can't really maintain friendships because of his personality. Um, he's a talk 99% of the time, listen 1% of the time kind of guy. And he's just kind of everything to
Mm,
extremes. He also doesn't drink, and he doesn't like going out, and he doesn't ever want to get married or have children or be in a relationship. Because he kind of understands the bad part of his life, like a bad part of himself, where he's just like, I can't provide you what you need in a relationship, so I'm just gonna, like, my idea of a good Friday night is writing, so by myself. So what can you do? But he was yeah, I don't know. I look back in that conversation with him, I'm like, maybe I was a little hard on him at the time because I was only like 18 or 19 at the time, and I had different attitudes. um but he I don't know. I mean, Misfits is pretty easy to get in your head. Um, some of their stuff can be some of Misfits can be super poppy and like get in your head, but also like, how can you not get, like, once you get like, I've got something to say, hey, I killed your baby today. It's just like that's in your head the rest of the day, and it doesn't matter much to me as long as it's dead. You know. Um, Met Mike Ness. Let's find out who this is. Oh. Oh, he's Social D. Okay, okay. Social Distortion. Social Distortion is kind of fun. I always thought like Social Distortion is like, if you take a punk band and like take all of like the passion out of them, you've got Social D. They're always just like, they just feel like they've they've they're like 60-year-old men at 20. Yeah. Like, I always thought like if Social D was just a little faster and a little more aggressive, they would have been perfect, But you know, there's a there's a lot of good covers of Last Caress out there, actually. Uh, No Effects is a very good version of Last Caress, but it's whether you want to focus in on like, Misfits are kind of funny because like before and after Danzig, like Misfits had a more of a classic like fast punk sound. So their music is really melodic, but when you get like Danzig in there, he does have that James Hetfield-ish like, I'm Danzig kind of idea. And like James Hetfield is kind of has a similar Danzig-y like sound to him. So like um I could see it, Last Caress, working on for Metallica on kind of a Danzig leaning, but like, if you can take other covers and it's more into like the punk aspect, which I think the thing about Misfits is the fact that like their vocals didn't fit their music, which gives an interesting like sound to them. But um yeah, early Social D, and I do like early. I do like Social D overall, but like, I mean, who doesn't like Story of My Life? Who doesn't like that song? How could you not like um yeah, yeah, I like the Descendants. It's so funny that fucking A, like, I couldn't believe the Descendants came up this week. Did you hear about this, Carmine?
no, I did not.
So the Descendants are this really influential punk band from the early '80s, who then came out with a pretty decent like comeback album many years later in the '90s, which was like fucking crazy that they like that they just kind of did nothing for a long time, and then just really good like follow up, which was kind of funny. But so they're super political, like super left wing, like over the top. Like, this is stuff like their early stuff is like, like, Reagan is a Nazi, he needs to fucking die. Like, this is the kind of stuff like like, cops are like the only good cop is a dead cop kind of stuff. Like crazy, they are very, very political, very, very left wing. And so one of the January 6th, like, Oathkeeper guys, like, shows up, like, to his deposition, in a Descendants t-shirt. And so, like, like, the band is like tweets out, like, oh my God, like, like, no, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, we do not. They had to, like, stress, like, no, we don't support Nazism in any way. But it was just such an odd thing, like, to have somebody from the far right, like, wearing this incredibly far left t-shirt. Like, and it's not like the Descendants were, like, ever a mainstream. Like, you have to be kind of, like, into punk music somewhat to get to the Descendants. Like, it's not like, it's not like you'd be listening to Green Day or Sum 41 or something, and you're going to get to the Descendants. You're kind of like, the Descendants is, like, pretty, like, several steps into punk rock. The Descendants are who Weezer wish they could be. Yeah, a lot faster than Weezer, but, like, I can see what you're saying, especially on a kind of a Pinkerton, rougher Pinkerton sense. But yeah, they never, Weezer, of course, we can all have the Weezer conversation, which is a Pat Finnerty shout out there. By the way, like, the Weezer conversation. So Pat Finnerty, check out his YouTube channel if you can. Like, he was in a band that had this song called the Weezer Conversation, where it's just like, he's just like, talks about how the song is about how the Blue album and Pinkerton are, like, great albums, and then everything kind of goes off the deep end, right? And then Saturday Night Live fucking stole the idea and had a whole skit about the Weezer Conversation, where one character is only into Weezer up until Pinkerton, and the other character is into Weezer, like, the entire discography, which is kind of weird, Yeah, I mean, if anybody listens to Descendants, they're not listening to the lyrics, but also, like, they're not listening to any of the lyrics of any of the other bands around them. I mean, like the fact that, like, the Descendants played with, like, Social D and, like, Reagan Youth and, like, and stuff back in the day, like, and the stuff they, anyway, this is, like, no one, like, this is really weird, obscure conversation that we're talking about, like, early 80s punk rock on an Ice and Fire stream. January 6th weren't far right, they're just dumb conservatives. Maybe. Really drunk the Kool-Aid. But I kind of feel like being into Trump kind of makes you a far righter now. Like, the ideas that are in his head. If you're now, like, gonna reject democracy and are into pure fascism, like straight up fascism, which is what they're kind of into, they're pretty much there.
Well, I wonder how much his reach and his influence has gone down since he's been off Twitter, because nobody fucking cares about the Truth Social. And honestly, the democracy in this country deserves to die if we can't, with all the mountain of evidence, we can't, put some charges on the guy.
Yeah. I mean, but, likely people will be too scared, especially if he starts to run for president. And so, the far right hates Trump. I mean, I guess, you get far enough. It depends how far you go. It's like the far left hating Biden, or far left hating, when you go far enough, you just start hating everybody. The Blue or Pinkerton. Pinkerton is by far the better album, though Blue is perfection. Like, let's not Like, it's how much more perfect than perfect do you want to be? Like, the Blue Album is a perfect album where like every song is like just flows in a rocking perfection. But like Pinkerton has more emotion, like, and is realer. Rivers Cuomo had a really interesting kind of statement about Pinkerton, and I think there's a lot of truth to it. But he said, and I can understand him as the miserable fuck that he is. I mean, I love him so much, but he's just a miserable fuck. But so he said that about Pinkerton, like, you know, when you have something like that's on your chest that's super cathartic, like that you need to get it off your chest, like, you know, say you want to tell somebody that you have feelings for them, even though you know they're going to reject you, but you just have to tell them, and it's super cathartic, but it's also really embarrassing afterwards. You know, like, imagine I think he used the thing of, imagine you're at a party and you like have like some big cathartic breakdown and you start telling everybody all of this stuff and it feels good for a moment. And then you're like embarrassed because everyone fucking remembers this like goddamn like, you know, gushing of your emotion. He said like Pinkerton is that, like, that he like really like let everything out, and now it's this like enduring embarrassment that he has to like the content that he has to like live with for the rest of his life, which I guess, but you're also like a fucking artist, right? Like that's what being an artist is. Being an artist is about like putting it out there and being embarrassed about it for the rest of your life and like showing real emotion, which is why Pinkerton's so fucking good. It's just while like you just don't get that with the like even Blue Album, like it's not like you're not ready to cry over Blue Album, but like fucking Pinkerton, man. Green Album, I mean, I think like a few of the songs in Green Album are solid, but you know, I would not say it's a perfect album. The idea of a perfect album is a really interesting concept because there's not that many anymore, right? Like I'll name like some like albums where I think like every song is fucking good. Like, you know, like even Sgt. Pepper's, which would be a perfect album if it didn't have, you know, a day in the life at the end. Like, you know, that's a fucking pretty close to a perfect album, right? But that's the idea. So like perfect albums, I can, you know, Siamese Dream is a perfect album. Like every song is good. Masters of Puppets is a perfect album. Like every song is fucking good. I can name some really obscure ones. Like, believe it or not, the Fine Young Cannibals, The Raw and the Cooked, is a fucking perfect album. Listen to that all the way through. Def Leppard's Hysteria is a fucking perfect album. If you listen to that thing all the way through, you're like, oh my God, like every song on here is fucking rocks. I think Jimmy World's Bleed American is a fucking perfect album. Like every song on it fucking rocks. Like there's no stinkers, you know? But it's really tough to get those ones. Graceland. I mean, a lot of people believe this about Graceland. It's true. And the thing is, like, I'm not even into Paul Simon, but like you know, it's like when other people like kind of make these comments and like say the kind of stuff. There's one Dead album. I forget which one that everybody always talks about as like the perfect album that they'll listen to it all the way through and then just like flip it over and do it again or restart. What's Wrong with a Day in Life? Far Too Long. Smash is a great album. I love this comment. What are albums? American Idiot is most certainly a perfect album. It's true. Like I could listen to that thing all the way through as if it's American Idiot is a fucking bonkers good album, just in the sense as well that the songs all like tie into each other. I mean, it's almost George R. R. Martin-ish, right? Like you're getting characters that come back and references to previous songs that like interweave. It's almost as if the whole album is like one good ELO is the best album, best greatest band ever. What's funny about ELO, and so a lot of people are familiar with the Traveling Wilburys, and like when the Traveling Wilburys came out, like as a kid, I remember like, okay, everybody knows that everybody knows George Harrison, everybody knows Bob Dylan, everybody knows Roy Orbison, everybody knows Tom Petty, you know, and then there's just this one guy that everybody's like, who the fuck is that guy? You know, like, and it turns out, you know, Jeff Lynne, to a music person, is like a fucking god. And I would say that most people would say that actually in that group, Jeff Lynne is probably the most talented of them. They might fight between like Bob Dylan and Jeff Lynne, but I think a lot of people that are super into music would be like, no, like Jeff Lynne is actually like the one who is the most talented of the group. Because man, that guy is, I mean, nobody thinks about music the way Jeff Lynne thinks about music. Come on. Who doesn't know about Jeff Lynne? I think now that like ELO is like in a fucking Guardians of the Galaxy movie, that's one thing, but like it's not like people had gotten into it too much like for a long time. I think they're kind of having a more of a comeback in a fucking losing my English, in a nostalgia sense, you know, so Alice in Chains, a jar of flies. Yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend who was super. What's funny is she didn't like any other like rock music except for Alice in Chains, and she fucking loved Jar of Flies so fucking much. That's the thing, is like people will fight you, but it's like, you know, about like about Bob Dylan and stuff, but like, man, like it's like how Jeff Lynne is like Jeff Lynne's pretty fucking crazy. And the rest of them, I mean, Tom Petty, he's an okay songwriter, but I think Tom Petty was more about his style. And some of Tom Petty's best songs are actually covers. Like "Don't Come Around Here No More" is not written by him. I think it's written by the woman from Fleetwood Mac, and things like that. Roy Orbison was more of a singer. It's more about his voice than anything else. George Harrison, pretty mid when it comes to songwriting, though he's got his fans. So it's really about that. Oh, Tool. First of all, Tool, nearly all of their albums are fucking perfect. Like, you're trying to tell me that Opiate isn't, I mean, Opiate's short, but like, you're trying to tell me that Opiate isn't fucking perfect. Fucking goddamn perfect album. Now, I'll tell you some albums that are perfect that you've never heard of. Like 4 a.m. Avail 4 a.m. Friday is a fucking perfect album. That one is, I will fucking listen to that one all the way through. There's Propagandi's like less talk, more rock is fucking perfect. There's quite a few Bad Religion albums that are perfect. Stranger Than Fictions is perfect. Recipe for Hate is perfect. Let's see here. Yeah, Undertow's incredible, and I would even say if it weren't for like the weird experimental stuff on Enema, I would say Enema is fucking good. Fucking good. Tool is so overrated. No, Tool's not overrated. Tool is fucking not overrated. I could never say that. They you know, he is I say they, it's he. He is incredible. Avail is also like, they're pretty cool dudes. I've hung out with them. So after shows, they just come out and just hang out with the fans. Like once they got small again, Like I saw them when they were small, and then I saw them when they were big, and then I saw them when they were small again, you know. And like they'll just like fucking come outside and like start chatting with everybody, and they're just really chill dudes. The dudes that never sold out. They always just slept on people's couches. Fucking man. Dillinger 4 is okay. Now keep in mind, Propaganda, I only like their first 2 albums, and then they got shitty real fast. I like How to Clean Everything and Less Talk More Rock. But then the rest of Propaganda stuff really kind of goes. Up Ivy's compilation is a perfect album. It is. I don't know if I don't think they ever put that together when they were a band, but yeah, their compilation is pretty fucking good. And I would say, some people talk about like other bands, like, I think Fugazi Red Medicine is a really fucking good album. And I think 13 Songs is fucking good. Cause I was just thinking about compilation albums like Minor Threat. Wait, ISIS was playing Tool? What is this all about? Is this something that happened? I haven't heard about that. Red Medicine is... At first I thought you said Red Medicine fucking sucks, and then I was like, oh, it's fucking sick. Good, he's on board. He's all on board. ISIS is a band. All right, here's another weird one that so many people will disagree with me on. So this is really fucking weird. I hate U2 except for Zooropa. And I think Zooropa is a fucking great album. But I fucking hate all of the rest of U2. Everyone will be like, that's the really fucking weird, because I don't know anybody else that like thinks Zooropa is a fucking great album, but like I fucking love it. And let me think of the Pogues has the best Infinite albums. I have to check that out. I actually haven't listened to too much of the Pogues. Oh man, you know none of these bands, do you, Carmine?
No, I do, but like I said, I know you're on the roll here, and it's finally something that's not politics, abortions, or circumcision. I'm gonna let you go crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, never been able to get into U2. Some people are super huge into them, and others are not. The Police was the perfect band. The Police were really interesting in the fact that they were able to take very, very simplistic songs and make them work. And I do think there's a real talent to that. And I don't mean that ironically or anything. Like I think Rage also like was really talented in that respect. Like the fact that you can take Dany, and like make that into something very listenable, like very minimalist, is a real talent. That you don't really hear that much of. Like, it's really hard to do a lot with so little, and Rage was able to do that. Oh, also, you know who has a fucking lot of fucking perfect albums? Lemonheads. Evan Dando is fucking genius. And like, you pick up like almost any of the Lemonheads albums, and they're all fucking perfect. Nothing's funnier than me than Trump loving right-wing hogs. Trump's right-wing hogs huge being into Rage Against the Machine. That's the weird thing, right? Because they're not connecting to the lyrics, but they're connecting to like the raw emotion of it, right? Like they have the anger, and they feel the music, but like they don't actually like listen to the lyrics at all. Now, I will grant though that like I listed Avail earlier as one of my favorite bands of all time. Avail's lyrics are dreadful. Like the other day, like, you know, it's one of those things where you like listen to the lyrics and you're like, oh my gosh, that's really bad. Like, they have this incredible song called Model, and if you don't pay attention to the lyrics, like, Model is an incredible song, and then once you read the lyrics, you're like, oh my god, these are horrible. These are really, really horrible lyrics. Yeah, that's the weird thing is how out of it people can be. I remember that I want to say it was during W's reign when he had both houses of Congress that they listed some like they had some like ad where they were portraying Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats as the empire and the Republicans as like the rebels, and they were like trying to destroy the Death Star. It's like how when you're like the ones in power, like how can you like conceive of yourself as the rebels? Which is like definitely, I guess the
Preston, don't you remember that episode in Star Wars where the rebels were trying to prevent gay marriage and abortion rights?
Yeah,
that episode?
Avail is still fucking great live now. Like, and it's mainly because the audience will make it great. But but it's just, I mean, I guess it all comes with this whole like, I'm a white male, I'm persecuted kind of, I'm a straight white male, I'm persecuted, kind of attitude. You know, like, oh, Christians do this too. Like, oh, we're so persecuted. How are you persecuted? You're like the massive majority, and you're like pushing the laws, and like you have all the power and control. But you know, the apparently there's a conservative saying how upset they were that Rage Against the Machine suddenly got all woke and political. That's the funniest. Oh my gosh. The just the other day, I think it was yesterday, somebody made a post saying like on one of my videos, I think it was the Destiny stream one, that you know, A Song of Ice and Fire isn't all left-wing politics. I was like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, George R. Martin, like, that's all he fucking writes is left-wing politics. He's like, you don't have to be all political with like A Song of Ice and Fire. I mean, you are true. Like this is the thing about Avail, and we're talking about this like random fucking small band. Like Avail, it's like the kind of thing where you like cram into a venue, and every single person in there is fucking going nuts, hopping up and down, and like it's not even a mosh pit. Like the entire venue is moshing or like hopping or just like ramming into each other and just like everywhere is crowd surfing, like in the entire venue. And just like that feeling of just being in a pack of like absolute chaos. Now you can achieve that in a small sense, like now if you go to a veil show and you go right up front, there's going to be some people going nuts, and there's going to be a few crowd surfers here and there. But like, and you might be able to find, I doubt you'll be able to find a pit anymore, as all veil fans are like in their 40s. But like that, like I will say that like that was unique about a veil, in that like like there were no casual Avail fans, right? You were either an Avail fan and were fucking super into them, or you're not. So like you were going nuts at the show. There was no standing room, chill dude in the back sipping a drink. Like, everyone was fucking going nuts. So it's, while most shows, you have to go up front for the real chaos. I will say that though, like when I saw the Ramones and the Veil's pretty fucking crazy show. The other craziest show I've ever been to is actually the Ramones. I saw the Ramones when I was 16, and I wasn't expecting, like we were pretty far up front, but I wasn't expecting like the minute they started to have like the entire area around me erupt. And I just remember like a friend of mine grabbed me and he held on to my torso like the whole show, and like the two of us were just like in this wave of people for the entire show. You could not tell one song from the other when we saw the Ramones. It was just like the same fucking thing. But yeah, I haven't been to a Summerfest since I was a little kid. So keep in mind I moved away from Wisconsin when I was like 11 years old. So I've not been to a Summerfest since. But when I talk about shows, I'm talking about like small venues in Baltimore and DC. Anyway, people, I'm sure I've bored many, but passing out in the middle of the show. This is the other thing, is when you're in a fucking sea of people, the oxygen becomes a real problem, because everyone around you, you're packed together with people, and everyone is fucking high hearts and everything. So we're all using a bunch of oxygen. And then you realize there's just not any oxygen anymore. Now I'm tall. So I just remember like during that Ramones show, even as a 16-year-old, I was still tall. Like I just remember like reaching up like this and being like, and I don't know how my friend, who was much shorter, like clinging to me, like survived, but he's just like, and we just like wave through the show. But I just remember like reaching up like that, breathing like, like there's just no oxygen. So you do have people passing out all the time. A lot of lost water and stuff like that. But good times.
It's a much laid back stream this time around. You're not angry all the time. This is good.
Well, I'm still passionate here. When was my last mosh pit? I think I went to a NoFX show in maybe my early 30s. So it's been like, and I like went down there just to mosh a little and crowd surf once. But I think I was in my early 30s. I went to a NoFX show and like moshed and surfed a little. But it's tough for me as well, because you're like a big guy. You kind of need a good critical mass. But also, like when you're a big guy in the pit, like everybody chooses you as the guy to lift them up. Everybody's like, dude, lift me up. Dude, lift me up. Okay, dude, lift me up. And then I'm spending the whole show like hauling people into the air. Okay. Very Battle of the Bastards. Yes. My Ramones show Battle of the Bastards moment. Yeah. All right, Carmine, thank you for coming in and out. We didn't get, by the way, I was expecting like Glytis to be like, oh yeah, do you have a circle? Do you have a thing for me? And there it was. So I made one for him, but he never joined. I didn't get to use it. I also made one for Trey.
Yay! What about Yoyston?
Yeah, I know. This is so fancy. Oh, you're out. You're gone. You're back. You're gone. You're back.
Well, what about Yoyston? You make one for him?
Not yet. I guess I
Seriously,
should.
that one of all the ones? That's so like lame and like it's drawn by a 2-year-old.
What do you want instead?
The one I have right here, or I can give you have my icons.
I get lost when you send me something on Facebook. It gets lost in the message stream.
I know the endless messages I send you.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah. I
You know
mean,
why your blood pressure is better this stream around? Because you banned that Coomer guy, Evil
no,
Preston Jacobs.
he was on at the beginning of the stream.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. No, I saw him. He did. I guess he didn't. He didn't like the punk discussion. Anyway, let's see. I guess I should say goodbye, but like I got this like interesting one that was like most overrated punk band ever, and that's like it's a real tough question. I do think it's probably Black Flag. If I'm really going for overrated punk bands, I think Black Flag is probably the most overrated. Um, like they don't necessarily have that many great like. I also think Dead Kennedys is pretty overrated. And I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this. I think Bad Brains is really overrated, but but you know. But yeah, it's a lot of the Dead Milkmen. A lot of there's some old punk bands that are not fucking great, and uh, yes, definitely Sex Pistols. Oh my god, how did I forget Sex
I
Pistols?
was just thinking Sex Pistols. Holy fuck!
Fucking of course. I would say I would say Ramones because there's so many fucking hipster shirts out there, but like of people that don't really like them. But I will say that like having been to a Ramones show and like having seen like real Ramones fans and like how fucking into them they were, I can't really say like I don't think the Ramones really spoke to certain people, and I can't say that like they didn't speak to certain people, but. Might have to unsubscribe for the Bad Brains hate. It's just, it's just me. I think there's a few. I mean, Circle Jerks is kind of, I mean, there's a few good Circle Jerks, but like, there's not, I mean, besides Group Sex, I don't necessarily think there's much good with the Circle Jerks. But, geez. Blink was very popular. And I will say that like Enema of the State is an example of a perfect album. Like I'll give them that. Every song on Enema of the State is good. I don't think they've done very much good since. But I don't necessarily think that like at the time they're so bad. They're Bad Brains was bad. Well, they're from DC, but Bad Brains, they were banned in DC. I do wonder. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Is it's the same with Misfits. Like people wear Misfits shirts and they were not into the Misfits, and people wear Ramones shirts that were not. The Ramones it's easier to be into as a casual than the Misfits, but like it's but they're like real Misfits fans or real fucking Misfits fans. Like, what can you say? I mean, a lot. It's like I can pick a lot of bands where like the posers jumped on. Like Pantera was a band where like so many people jumped off, or Korn or Nine Inch Nails. But like, you will not tell me that there aren't fucking diehard real Nine Inch Nails, real fucking like Pantera fans out there. But it's when like there's a bandwagon and there's no like real heart to a band. It's kind of the more interesting phenomenon, So, yeah. So anyway, I got to get going. I got to go buy a birthday present or something for my wife today. So, oh, Band in DC is their favorite Bad Brains song. Fuck me. So there it is. Sorry for that thing to messing up there. Okay. All right, guys. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.